thing?
A lot of this unstudied and
Oh yeah, we can do prayer. So we're gonna start with the Morse American prayer. If you don't want to participate, just stay seated, stay silent. Face east. East is where the sun rises. Sun represents knowledge, so we're not doing.
TV is.
Yeah, so just know we're not doing dogmatic worshiping the sun. The sun represents knowledge, so we face east. And harvest, agriculture, science. 5 fingers on the left, 2 on the right. Repeat after me. Allah.
Allah.
Mother of the universe.
Mother of the universe.
Mother of love.
Mother of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my guide.
Allah is my guide.
My protector.
My protector.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
To our holy prophet.
To our holy prophet.
Peace. Peace. So know that everything we do has a reason, and we're not just doing things dogmatically, because that's part of our problem. We go to church and we just go along with the "in Jesus Christ said, no man." We think that's real religion. That's dogma presented as religion. What we practice is religion, which is science, or the realignment with nature.
But you're gonna do the introduction,
Okay.
and then you.
All right, cool.
All right.
Happy Holy Day, Moors.
Happy Holy Day.
Welcome to the House of Reawakening Minds. We're so glad that you have decided to be here with us tonight, and we're excited because of our special guest. So before I get into that, let me give you our introduction. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and more science. For all, we hope this is an awakening experience for all ages. And we are so happy tonight to have with us all the way from Rhode Island territory, the founder of The Rise of the Moors, author and lecturer, Brother Jamal Bey. Let's receive him.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Rise of the Moors, for the Rise of the Moors people. Welcome to the House of R.A.M. For the Rise of the Moors people, follow the House of R.A.M. on Facebook. If it wasn't for this place, I wouldn't be where I am right now, because I probably wouldn't have had direct, unadulterated access to this information. Everything's all codified, hidden, and people want to maintain positions of so-called power. So thank the House of R.A.M. So we can give a round of applause for the House of R.A.M. So, as usual, the things we read at every meeting, caveat emptor, my personal favorite, is sons cowards, in my opinion. More than men, which we know man means think. Get any unabridged quality dictionary, and it'll tell you that man, M-A-N, the root of man is M-E-N, which means to think. This universe is mental. It's not about only men are Moors. Right? Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones, vow the prophet to a destiny which is not certain or unknown. They are fortified by the impregnable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It is therefore folly at its greatest height for smelling culprits with insidious plans to invade such a realm. They try, but their own bad planning brings out wrath upon their heads, like the so-called Democrats had. Intrigue and scurrilous cunning find a difficult path to travel within the ranks of the Moors. This is so because the Moorish movement has been well planned by Prophet Noble Ali, whose latent powers are abundant, unknown, and they propose into action as a matter of defense at any moment. Prophet Noble Ali and those of people within his ranks who are interested. They are the vanguard of the movement as the Moorish hordes increase here in America. All of the Moors are active, not passive. And members' interest can only be in one direction. And having traveled all the roads years before, the Prophet knows where every member is along the road. A few feet below is another road where schemers work, where traders grin, and culprits bask in the sun. They think they're on the same road with true Moors, but the Moors are high above on the pinnacle, where they might view the destruction as they fall for the last time, and their bones bleached and associated with their sun. Hungry scavengers flying high, catch scent, devouring you, crying out, caveat emptor, cast out the dead carcass. The more time above see the spotters praise, the worse they exist, hurl themselves downward by their own by their own works of the false way. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There was a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claimed that I was only joking and real. But now since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they may take charge of the situation. I've notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that are tribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me in the movement will be remembered. That is why I call upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can show the side of discord that is facing the nation. It overcomes jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. This is improved by our works which I performed in the past few years, Prophet Noble. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, this is the instructions from your prophet, Noble Ali. Be faithful to your forefathers and my national creed, that you be blessed for your good deeds as you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah, so is the divine prophet, Noble Ali. That's why many hearts have been turned to stone, many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, these will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving. They are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid. It's caused confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. This is directed towards the people that would like make an hour video about me instead of focusing on truth. They would rather talk about me instead of the truth. So remember, when you hear that, the foundation of this movement is the minds of our people. Because just like it says in the Bible, my people perish by the day for lack of knowledge. Since we don't know that we have birthrights, every time these Europeans try to foreclose on one of our houses, we just leave. Because we don't know. We don't know how to defend ourselves, we don't know law, we don't know what to say to these people, so we just leave. Or we get a European attorney who we already know these people are corrupt. Ask any person, any conscious Moor, any sleep Moor, anyone, they all say, yeah, these people are corrupt. But then we pay them. So again, the foundation of this movement is the minds of our people. Meaning teach them something, anything. You know what I'm saying? Anything you know, teach them. Excuse me. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice, yet also be very glad to protect, your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. The enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest. The ones that speak against your divine and natural principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, and withdraw you. This is the last one. Prophet warns all Muslims. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple of the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive the reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Ali. If the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that to do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet Noble Ali through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, Noble Ali. And since the last part was about ID cards not flashing at Europeans, that does not mean you can't use it. Because I use mine to board a plane from so-called Providence to so-called Florida, and you'll see it has my pretty national name on it. And since we're talking about diversity, we basically need to know that when the prophet called us a nation, he meant it. So if you want to pass this around. And that's from the idea that I got from R.A.M. So for people like, well, does R.A.M. implication do their nationality cards work? Well, first of all, a card doesn't do anything. Everything's based on status, which is your mental competence. So as you're passing that around, don't think that just because you say you're more, that these Europeans are going to respect anything. Because they'll challenge you. Yes, please. So, that's private, by the way, if you don't know. This is, that's hard to see. Yes.
I just want to remind them, if anybody has any questions, don't feel shy.
Yes, definitely ask me anything and everything. So this is from the United States Code, Title 18, subsection 1028, related to nationality cards and identification. All right, let's go down to D, number 3. Right here. Yeah, I can see that. Let me close the board. That's the wall. It says, the term identification document means a document made or issued by the authority of the United States, a state, political subdivision of a state, sponsored entity of an event designated as a special event of national significance, a foreign government. Now, why am I stopping there?
That's a big deal.
Because we're foreign to them.
And they're foreign to us on our end.
Exactly. So within their own codes, they recognize IDs issued by foreign nations, which that's us, even though they're on our homeland. Tracking? So I just wanted to show you that it's there. Because when I tried to board the plane from so-called Providence, it was a nice woman. She basically pulled me to the side, called whoever she needed to call to make sure I wasn't on the fly list, and she said I couldn't be on my phone at the time because they were going to ask me for landmarks and stuff like that. And the person she was on the phone with said, ask him why he doesn't have a valid ID. So I said, this is a valid ID. Tracking? Most people would have said, well, I don't know. Because like the prophet said, the nationality card's going to change in your pocket. Your nationality card is not you. You're you. The card doesn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? That's diversity. We have the right to self-determination. That's diversity. And again, when you're dealing with the active state doctrine, every sovereign state recognizes the sovereignty of every other sovereign state. So they can't not accept RDs. Except if you say, well, I don't know. And you pull up a so-called state ID from one of these corporations, you know what I'm saying? Any questions on that?
No.
No?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed.
Okay, you go.
I'm embarrassed because I keep putting up the state ID.
Wait, Mike.
I get so embarrassed. Putting up the state ID.
Now, which state ID? What's the state?
Commercial driver license, Pennsylvania. And, all caps and kind of really disturbing a lot. I'm getting confused sometimes. It's a car and somebody asks $75, $35. And then when they put that thing racing, I really believe.
What card?
On that other card. That you go online, you got some kind of a nationality card organization. And what disturbs me is race. And I believe, what I've learned, this is species. I don't like to use that.
Well, race is humans. They make us think that there's different races. I mean, there are different races, cat, dog, elephant.
Yeah.
But amongst humans, there's only one race, and it's human.
I thought you meant
So if we choose anything other than human, then human laws don't apply to us. That's why they're able to do whatever it is that they want to do to us. Contractually. But then when we're dealing with the divine side, every living being has a right to defend itself. Like if a bird's getting attacked, you're going to see that other bird fight back, right? Our problem is we refuse to fight back.
Oh, is there to put a race on your card?
So my point is, when you see that, know they're trying to trap you into something. Because there's only one race, so why even ask the question?
Yeah. Slash nationality, like that.
Those are two different things.
Yeah, those are two different things.
Two different things.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
So the human race is identified by different nationalities, like Chinese, German, Moorish. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Our national identity is Moorish.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what's your question?
The only thing that disturbs me when I see race, it kind of reminds me of my state ID, you know, all caps, you know, like that. I know I need to drive a commercial vehicle.
Well, here's the thing. What you're dealing with is the Christian Black Codes of 1724, right?
Right.
They made us think that we're their citizens. So instead of getting a license from the Moorish nation, meaning you're competent enough to do commerce, they've taken basically administrative jurisdiction on our land. So now we go to them. But you don't have to go to them to do anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So for you to keep bringing that up, it's if you use that, that's because you agree. You don't have to use it. Other than that, if they force you, that's an entirely different story. You know what I'm saying? Also, when you're calling them a state, remember that a state is just a group of people bound together by common laws. You can find that in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. So our state, this right here, all these Moors in here, this is considered our state. This is our nation state. These are our people. So we have the right to say, okay, you're going to be charged with administrating national IDs for everyone here. And then the Europeans have to recognize it. Now, how do we get them to recognize it? We all say, this is our ID, period. Everyone trying? I know I'm talking to a bunch of conflict people. That's why I wanted this to be more of an open discussion with people and ask questions. Yes. Want to get it right?
Oh, yeah, sorry. What title and subsection was that? You just read it?
That was Title 18, subsection 1028, letter D. Letter D, number 3. And it doesn't just have to be a nationality card. It can be any piece of paper with your name on it.
Another thing I want to add on to what the brother was just speaking about, he said, my ID. What you want to say is, that's their ID, so don't say mine, because that's anything dealing with any corporate, social security, birth certificate, anything like that. Don't never say it's yours, because you set the contract and you're saying like you're obligated to it.
Yeah, so remember when you're dealing with the strong name, the CUSID number, the social security number, that's based on the Excessive Convenience Act of 1580 and 1666, where once they defeated our people, they said, we're going to administrate this land for their benefit. But they're using the social and that strong name to extract energy from us through fiat, which they control. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they're forcing us to do certain things, so they have access to our, basically, energy pool. Yes?
Okay, some online question, comment questions online. Reversioner says, will you ask the question, will you address the issue? Just call Homeland Security and give them 1 day advance notice you'll be traveling using your nationality card.
Yes, you can do that too. I don't know what E-Verify is. Does anyone know what it is? You do? You give this brother and then, yeah, him, and then you had a question, right?
You straight, right? It was him.
No, he's going to answer what E-Verify is, and then we'll give him
This one. All right, E-Verify is basically, you can set the contract online and you use the mouse to sign whatever document that they ask you to sign, basically, to set in that contract that already presented to you.
So that's all it is? Is that to address it, or you sign it or you don't? Peace.
This one is on.
Brother, I wanted to ask about the U.S. state citizen passport. Can we Arabs actually make use of it?
Why would we need to do that if we could just make our own? That's dealing with national sovereignty. Every other nation uses their own passports. So for us to keep going to them for anything, that keeps them in that position of authority. Because then we have to go to them to ask them for anything. And the Prophet said himself, a beggar people will never be able to rise to the highest degree of spirituality, because if you keep begging for everything. So instead of focusing, and I'm not saying you personally, I'm just saying us in general, instead of focusing on their anything, let's focus on our something. So the Moors want passports, get with the Moorish American consulate, because that's what consulate is supposed to be doing.
It's fine. And, one more question, about the United Postal Union.
Hmm.
Can you expound on any of that?
Any specific questions? I like to deal with.
Are you asking like what is their duty to us? Or,
Yes, yeah, how about that one, yes.
You want to answer that?
I would like to start by saying that I'm definitely not one who has been being ready to say that I'm adept when it comes to studying more science, but I'm just a student person. And as far as us understanding that we are the true Americans and the contract laws that are in place with the United States Postal Service and as well as the United States Postal Union, because there is a difference, stands that there is some certain way of having your things sent if you're trying to certify mail or reach certain corporate entities without being feed for it. But I wouldn't sit up here and lie to you as if I know places right now that currently won't give you any type of hassle for it, or if you don't present the correct case law to present why, this is a service that we shouldn't be paying for, or things of that nature. It's
Are you talking about tax aid per Q?
yes.
Yeah.
I forgot the name. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
It's basically where you can send mail.
sorry,
I'm pretty sure it's TAXE PERCUE, and you can look that up in the United States Postal Service. Pop up on their website. You want to share your story about
Me?
Yeah, you're in the Postal Service.
Oh.
And the difference between the post office in your area, which is predominantly European,
Yeah.
and the post office in my area, which is the south side of the province,
Uh-huh.
and the difference in just service and how much, I guess, fight back you got when you did use the tax aid per Q.
Yeah, so at my post office, I wanted to try the free mail tax aid per Q. And I think they're in their R.A.M. If you just write on where the stamp actually goes, their R.A.M. code for the tax aid per Q, and put your fingerprint in red, signed in red, then they'll go then and look it up and send your parcel or mail for free. I do this at my postal service fine. They never give me a problem. They're always cordial. Now they address me as Noble. They already know when I come in, they're just gonna stamp it and go ahead. I don't have to present anything other than their own code. But when I go to his postal service, it's terrible. They don't want to check the book. They don't want to take the information, and I make it easy. I print out their information from their website and give it to them so that they don't have to go look it up. But they always give me a hard time. So it's a difference of neighborhood.
So our people normally call that racism. It's not racism. It's systematic genocide. So when you study the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 and 1933 and United States Code Title 12, subsection 411, they basically tell you that everything's paid for, especially Title 12, subsection 411. There's no issue for us to be able to send free mail. Some of the problem that we're dealing with is the clerks who don't know any of this stuff, who are just, they're just there to do a job. And then the higher ups who know this stuff, who literally don't train these people so that they give us problems. Because one of the situations that they brought up at the post office was, well, if I have to pay for my mail, how come you don't? You know what I'm saying? So the problem isn't just we have enemy. The problem is ignorance. Yeah, someone else had a question?
I had a question, and then I had a statement or something, experience somewhat similar to what the sister said, and then sparked from what you said about people knowing as higher ups and they're not training people for it like directly. And they don't even be super high levels of people that are not going to say. I predominantly was raised in the territory that they call Chester. So when I go in Pennsylvania or the corporate area dominated, it's called Pennsylvania, I shop at places to get food, I know that it's illegal to tax food at any level. So, like I said, I'm not, like the brother said, one of the most proficient brothers at all. I do read my time when I study, I'm studious when I study. So I know my card, it has my tax identification number on there. So when I'm in the store, I had one of my brothers. One of my brothers, he didn't, quote unquote, in the know at all. We don't get together, but I love him the same. He was with me when we went to the store, and this is fast food Wendy's. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm not trying to do it to show him, but I'm like, we're about to see something happen, you know? So in Pennsylvania, the tax is, when you're shopping in that Pennsylvania, it's a 6-cent tax for every $1. I kindly told the lady, hey, can you please get your manager, please? I helped her, she went and got the manager, and the manager came to the counter. I said, hey, sir, there's a mistake here. There's a tax on my food. I was like, but here's my card. He kindly said, oh, excuse me, to the young lady that was at the home register. She stepped to the side, he hit a button or two. It was obviously already a setting in the register. It came up, tax was removed. On my receipt, it said tax exempt on the receipt. Just like that. And my brother was off. He couldn't believe it. So we went to another store later on that day. The same thing happened at a store that was, now, I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't know their nationality, but it would be a courtesy as quote unquote Chinese or Korean store, and they think they're Chinese food. The same thing happened. I asked the woman at the counter, you know, there was a mistake there, there's a tax on my food, showed her the card. She called the man back from the back of the store, or kitchen, came to register, it was removed. So it was, yeah, obviously from, like I said, quote unquote, one girl who identified as black wasn't trained to register, but she's there all day, rings up every day. The manager, quote unquote Caucasian, comes right up or European, and knew immediately what it was, and didn't ask me no questions, no resistance at all. Now, the neighborhood I was in isn't Chester, it was right outside of it, which is called Caucasian, which is more dominated by Europeans. It was no resistance at all. Now, the store went to a Chinese store that wasn't a hood in Chester, no resistance whatsoever at all. Now, of course, I'm thinking wherever they are, they know our nationality as well. So we're just gonna say, like, it's going on in your local store already, and it's right there in your face. And if you study, you know what I'm saying, you can utilize rights.
And it's recognized.
It's recognized.
So anyone saying, well, who recognizes the Moors? They wouldn't allow me to go on the plane if they didn't recognize the Moors. They wouldn't allow him to take taxes off if they didn't recognize the Moors. A lot of people take that position because they're afraid. They don't want to even challenge anyone on anything like, I want taxes off. They don't want to go through that.
I just wanted to expound before that. In that situation, because I've been in that situation as well. In that situation, you don't necessarily need to hand the person your card, like how Paul was talking about.
I didn't have to show them.
Oh, okay.
I
Well, even if shown, you know, it's great for us to be verbatim with this, because as soon as we seem iffy, or you know, as soon as we seem like we're fragile with this information, sometimes some bullies or colonizers will run over that, and they use the influence of the crowd that might be in the realm of where you are to influence for your rights to be disrespected. So you know what I mean. So just be more conscious of like how the prophet taught us, flashing your cards and all that stuff. Thankfully, though, the European was aware, you know, that things were smoothly. So
Just to comment, I'm sure the prophet meant don't flash the cards like arrogantly, like, oh, look what I got, because that's not what this is about. This is about saving our people on multiple levels. This goes so deep, the issue of diversity. It affects housing, travel, commerce, tax. Literally anything, any problem that our people bring up, Moorish Science has a solution for it. And I challenge anyone to bring up any issue. And if I can't answer it, I'm pretty sure I know someone who can, where I can find an answer. One of the things I like to do with our people, or at least on video, is I like to show them the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. I'm going to get the crowd involved. My lovely assistant over here is a beautiful young lady. Read Article 1. I'll read it to the mic.
In this declaration, indigenous people are those who embody historical continuity with societies which existed prior to the conquest and settlement of the territories of Europeans, in parentheses it says alternative I, as well as peoples brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves and cultures from which they had been torn, in parentheses it says alternative to.
So does everyone know what the Inter-American States are, or what the Organization of American States are? So it's basically the Brazilians, the Haitians, the Nicaraguans, the Colombians, the Mexicans, all of the Americas, they all came together and agreed on this. They just said an indigenous person are those who embody historical continuity with their land prior to European conquest, right? And then alternative number one, they said, as well as those brought involuntarily to the New World, meaning who? So-called blacks, right? So this is saying that black people, so-called black people, are indigenous to this land, right? Then when you read the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, Article 15, it says indigenous people have rights of nationality, which is what we're dealing with right now. Because our people have to beg these Europeans to find a place to live, whether it's through Section 8, whether it's through public housing or whatever kind, or whether it's through getting a mortgage. But when we read the rights of indigenous people, it says we have the rights to our land and resources back. And they're charged with ensuring that our economic situation gets better. So a lot of us, we get in a situation and we think we're alone and we can't do it by ourselves. We're not supposed to be doing it by ourselves. That's reparations. But if we don't stand together and say, hey, Secretary of the Treasury, for whatever so-called state you're in, state of Rhode Island, state of Delaware, it doesn't matter. It's all private commercial paper. Give us some type of voucher card so we can get in this building and fix it up so we have no more brown people sleeping on the street. You get what I'm saying? And I don't mean to yell at y'all, but this problem it's insane. There should be no reason why there's any brown skinned person sleeping on the street. Here, when this is our land. You get what I'm saying? That's one of the ways I like to teach our people, you're not black. You're at least claim indigenous, at least do that. Because it says it right here. So you can keep the black history, keep that you was brought over here as a slave. I did research on my family tree. I was asking my mom for different names. I haven't found one slave. All my family comes from the South. The Anyangwe, the so-called Cherokee. That's what my family's from. That's me doing research, not some DNA test from some European that said, oh, well, you're 12% African, and you're 12% American, and you're 20% black, and you got some, whatever, you know what I mean? None of that bullshit, excuse me. None of that BS. Why would they tell you that, oh, this is your land? Then they gotta go home. Because this is what they all know right here. This document was taken from the Recorder of Deeds from the City of Providence. This is Gina Raimondo, who's the governor of Rhode Island, her mortgage discharge for $1.
Just look at that nice house.
Yeah, and look up her address on Google. 525 Elm Grove, ELMGROVE Avenue, Providence, Rhode Island. Look how beautiful this house is. She paid $1 for it. Meanwhile, our people get into $200,000 mortgages that they can never pay off, and then the European comes foreclose on the house anyway. So now our people, right, working paycheck to paycheck to pay off this mortgage, so now their children have to go where? To some daycare center operated by Europeans? Who's going to keep us in this situation of us being stupid so that they can just do this on our land? Right? I'm going to read it to you, and feel free to pass it around. You'll feel that it's embossed from the City of Providence. City clerk. Meaning Europeans do this, and they know this on our land. Because we're not doing it, and we don't know it. Keep thinking this is a game. This is a release of mortgage / deed of trust. Know all men by these presents that the undersigned for and in the consideration of payment. In the consideration of payment, does it say payment?
No.
God says we considered it. The payment of indebtedness secured by the cancellation, does that say pay? Oh, cancellation of all the notes, thereby secured in the sum of $1. The receipt whereof is hereby acknowledged, does hereby remiss, release, satisfy, convey, and quit claim On to Andrew K. Moffitt, who, that's the first lady, that's the first husband I had, who he's in charge of medicinal cannabis and so forth around, so they're just dominating everything. And Gina Raimondo, who's the governor of Rhode Island. Tenants by the entirety, heirs. Let me ask you something. Is this Europe?
No.
So how can it be heirs to America if this ain't Europe?
It's cheating.
That's it's cheating and conversion. So let me tell you something. Release, satisfy, convey, and quit claim onto Andrew K. Moffitt, that sounds European to me, and Gina M. Raimondo, which also sounds European. Tenants by the entirety, heirs, legal representatives, successors, and/or assignees, and assigns all right, title, interest, claim, or demand whatsoever it may have acquired through or by a certain mortgage/deed of trust bearing the date February 18, 2009, and filed for the record in the land records of the Township of Providence City and Providence County, State of Rhode Island, as instrument number. So if you're in so-called Providence, Rhode Island, go to the city hall in Providence, recorder of deeds. It's on the 5th floor, Construction 508. Speak to John D. Murphy, who's also the city tax collector, or speak to any clerk and type in Gina Raimondo's name. And it's public information, right? So, instrument number 00004334 and book number 9344 at page number 163 on February 23rd, 2009. She stopped paying her mortgage since 2009.
Yeah, that's claim.
No, it's not an adverse claim. It's like you and I are in China, right? We're trying to conquer Chinese people. We already got stuff online. So I already know by you keeping secrets, I can keep you in power, and I'm a mortgage company, right? And you're running for whatever position. I'm gonna say, okay, since I already know you're European, I already know what it is, you go ahead and discharge that. As long as you don't teach the niggers or so-called Chinese, whatever you want to call them. You get what I'm saying? So they all know this. They're all in cahoots with each other. That's why it works. It's not that they know some special information. It's not. If you're my boy, I'm gonna love you. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm gonna put this on camera. And you can see where it was embossed by them. So here's the front, and I'm gonna pass it around the room too. Yeah.
I just want to say, being that the brother pointed out that, he did this with this specific property. I've done this in New Jersey.
No, this is the governor of Rhode Island who did this. This is a European who did this.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm saying as well that you can do this from what I've been experiencing anywhere. You know what I mean? You can look up these records anywhere. It's not just that, yes, he's very studied up and he's here to teach us, but don't be afraid to do this yourself. Don't be afraid to enforce constitutional law. You know what I mean? This is nothing but.
They're doing it.
It's not saying it.
They're doing it. This is the governor of Rhode Island. Look her up. She looks like the Louis Richard West. I'm serious. I'm not serious. Pass this around, please. So meanwhile, these Europeans are doing this. Our people are struggling to paycheck to paycheck, going through Section 8, begging for something. And instead of going to these people's offices, where all these buildings are public, City Hall public, State House public, instead of us going there collectively like this and saying, hey, I checked City Hall, how come Gina Raimondo discharged this $2,000 mortgage for $1? Meanwhile, we're living in the projects in the ghetto, struggling. I don't want to get too personal, but all of us went through this. You know how many times we had to shower at grandmother's house and cousin's house because the heat was off, because the hot water was off? These Europeans ain't going through that. They're not. So for anyone to dismiss this information or say, oh, we need wars, they're sellouts. Period. And for anyone to not get with this it's gonna come with you. Because I got a grandmother, right? I'm not trying to have my grandmother spend the rest of her life paying off a mortgage. I'm not trying to have my nephew spend his entire life paying off a mortgage to some European on his land. I'm not dealing with that. You get what I'm saying? So please, look at it. Don't believe me. None of that's my handwriting. Go to City Hall, look for yourself. Go to your City Hall, whatever city you're in, whatever county you're in, and check. Look up any John Doe, any John Smith, or anyone's name. You'll see all their stuff. These Europeans do this.
Challenge your servants.
Someone have a question?
Yeah. It's not a question, but we talked about earlier. I've done the same thing with my mortgage. But I used to Fair Debt Credit Act. If you look that up, they have what lies in your debt, and it tells you how to file the paperwork.
What's the name of it?
Fair Debt Practice Collection Act. That's what I use.
Was that an act by Congress? So what they do is they try to make a diversion to get you away from just saying quit claiming. What more process do you need than saying, okay, you're European, this ain't Europe, you can't be a landlord, so therefore you're a funeral lord. What am I paying for? What more do you want from that? You know what I'm saying? It's not as hard as people are making it seem. You get what I'm saying?
But in all that case, do we need to have that?
No, there's no process. You telling them quit your claim. That's you telling them.
The process.
That's the process. That's it.
Okay.
What you see with that document, that's just so it's on the public record that mortgage company isn't going to attack this person's house because when you get into a mortgage, they put it on the county record. You get what I'm saying? And even when you're doing intensive foreclosure, they put it on the county record. They put everything on the county record because it's public record. Even though it ain't public because they ask you for private commercial paper, but it's de facto because the Moors don't do it. Meaning it exists in fact, that doesn't mean it's lawful. It just means it exists in fact because civilization has to keep running, so that's what it is. But remember, when we're dealing with equity, fairness, that's all equity means, fairness. When dealing with what's fair, if they're asking for private commercial paper, they take on that debt. But if you agree to give it to them for whatever reason, you want to argue because chump change or whatever, that's on you. You get what I'm saying? What we need to realize is first study this information and then realize what we can do in numbers. You get what I'm saying? Because I'm not sure if any of you watched some of my videos, but in the municipal city of Pawtucket, the Pawtucket police kicked in a Moore's door. They said, "Oh, who called the police?" They didn't know how to get down. He said, "Don't call the police. You ain't welcome in my house." So the police kicked down his door anyway, right? So what the Moore did was he went to City Hall, amongst these city officials, and asked in an intelligent tone, "Give me $500 back. Because your municipal agents damaged my property." They was giving him a fight back. Then what happened? 5 more showed up to City Hall, sat in the same room with these Europeans, and just like the prophet said, the Europeans ain't folded until they stare death in the face. And I was at the table like this. Then, right, Bob walked in the room like, "Oh, this is for the so-and-so there, we'll deal with this first." With a stack of paper like this. These are issues they had to deal with. Just because we're all in that same room, they said, "Oh, we'll deal with this first," and they gave us $500 back. Write them a check. It's that simple. There is no process. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things that we can put on the public record for liability and stuff like that, but there is no process. It's all what we create. You know what I'm saying? Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm listening to what you're saying, and what if you had a situation where this originally you had a deed, someone did an adverse conveyance on it. Now, would you do that process to now make them a tenant and get them out?
Yes, they have to be more specific.
Okay. You know what adverse conveyance is, right?
Yeah.
Meaning someone came and rewrote the deed as if it was theirs and it's not.
That's wrong.
Right, exactly. So.
Before we continue, what is a deed?
What do you mean?
What is a deed?
I don't know.
A deed is an action.
Okay.
So when you file a deed of trust, deed means someone engaged in a trust. You know what I'm saying? So you can't rewrite a deed because the deed is an action. You know what I'm saying? The deed of trust is not ownership. A deed of trust means a trust was created. Period.
So then the question is, but I do a load of land patent, load of land title.
A local title.
Right.
And claim the actual land, not the building.
Right.
As long as you let it.
Right. because I actually kind of know how to do that,
Mhm.
but in Pennsylvania, specifically because of Franklin, it's the heat owns, so they try to.
Is he alive? Can they,
Let's
can anything that own anything? Okay, so use that basic common sense and don't ever say that again. You get what I'm saying? Because that's just, why is that in your head? And I'm asking you, but I'm not asking you. We have to use common sense. Can a dead person own something? No, so, you get what I'm saying? That's conversion again.
They trying to say it's their heirs.
Who are the heirs? Name them.
Who's the big telling you this?
It's the officials, city officials.
Who?
The clerk's office.
So name the heirs.
You gotta address them.
If they're saying the heirs only, who are the heirs? And then, you know what genocidal is?
Yeah, it's when it's been transferred.
Yes.
Right, recorded.
Yeah, to make sure that they're holding to the course. Because last time I checked, they ain't know what the results are right now. It's all legal trust. So if they can't prove that they own anything, they don't own.
Ready to be cleaned up.
A chain of title or a title is basically a receipt.
Right.
This is mine. You know what I'm saying? So if they don't have that, then it ain't theirs. And if they ain't Asiatic, then it ain't theirs. The last time I checked, this is America, right? Morocco, not Europe, not England, not New England. This is America. So they're all feudal lords, period. Feud, like family feud, their claim can be argued. And I'm not trying to do that to make it, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. All people know what family feud is. They argue on the show, feud, fight, and fight their claim. But you just being here, that's fighting their claim. Now, when I claim the 9.8 acres of land, I plan to farm on it and stuff like that, because agriculture is important, because our people get everything from these Europeans. So it's like, okay, if I just farm and sell vegetables for like $1 a pound, I can run all these people out of business and then feed our people. Then 5 Europeans called, so what they did was they blocked off the public from getting access to the water. So other people were complaining, not just me. So when Asiatic came down, took off the sign that said state property, because the state is the people. So if it belonged to the people, it wouldn't be blocked off because the people didn't say that, right? So he took off the sign. They thought it was me. And the next day I was going to dig the pond, and 5 Europeans were on the other side of the fence. Right? They called in state police. It was the Asiatic, so-called Dominican. So again, all people doing it. I was digging the pond. He threatened to tase me because I didn't stop. I was like, no, this is my land. He was saying, well, they're saying it's theirs. I'm like, did they prove it? He said, well, no, but if you don't leave them, I'm going to tase you. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to put fear into you. I'm trying to say, if we do this together, they can't stop us in City Hall. And they don't got to be violent. They can, hey, Europeans, we're going to be over here. Go ahead and tell the chief of police to not bother us. Is that simple?
I have a question.
Yes.
This might be better. I just wanted to ask, when you did claim the land, did you put on notice the 8 locations of government as well?
I put on notice the feudal lords who claiming ownership, the Secretary of State, because she's in charge with all the historical records, all records, and the county. And I got it stamped by the Secretary of State. It's at my house. The issue is, when I was leaving the pond, I didn't have that paperwork, and I was getting threatened to be tased, so I'm not getting this. Then at the time, I had just started learning, so I was like, I can either fight with these Europeans by myself and lose, because there's a lot of them, right? It'll just be wasted energy, or I can teach people. Because when I teach the people, I can say, okay, y'all ready to do something? All right, let's do this together now. You know what I'm saying? Because they tried to scare me, and policy force was yelling at me, stuff like that. I was in the Marines, so that stuff didn't work no more. Right. So he started getting nervous, because I wasn't scared. So he was afraid that I wasn't afraid. You know what I'm saying? So then he started reaching for something. I was like, you about to shoot me right now? Anyway, long story short, walked home, started crying. And then my mom see me walking in the house, I just felt defeated. You know what I'm saying? But what I was learning was, it doesn't matter if I'm not afraid of these people. It doesn't matter if it's me. We matter. You know what I'm saying? So if we can get out of the I, me, then then we can go to City Hall and do something. We can go to the State House and say something. You know what I'm saying? Because if we just keep going by ourselves, I'm telling you from experience, it don't really mean nothing. I mean, it means something, you know, spiritually, divinely, because, you know, you're fighting a beast has many heads, and it takes some type of fortitude to not be afraid of that. But that's just the beginning. Once you get past that, then you'll quickly find out it doesn't matter how much you know and what you know, and you can say it so many different ways. Without the people, you're nothing. In certain situations, because you can contract by yourself. But when it comes to like housing for our people, to get our women out of Section 8, my aunt was telling me that in her day that Europeans used to go to the projects and inspect like the cleanliness of the housing, but they would look under the bed and in the closet to make sure that the male wasn't in the house. So now we're talking about the Willie Lynch syndrome. Willie Lynch man will try to remove the male figure. You know what I'm saying? So to alleviate all of that, we said, okay, city officials, we're fixing this up for our people. Actually, excuse me, you're fixing it up for our people. Since you justified and destroyed our nation, go ahead and fix that, reparations. So this just touches everything. And again, it doesn't matter what you know, it matters what we know and what we do. Because if we just, I just know something and sit down and nothing will happen. If I know something, I just sit down and do nothing, I might as well just be a book. You know what I'm saying? That's why the prompt said active more. You have to actually do something with this. Just go to City Hall and research something, not doing something. And it does not. Yeah.
My brother right here. Go ahead. Well, thanks. Well, thanks for being you. This is all I got. You know, House of Reawakening Mind and House of Tune you. And I had got a handcuff, and then when I got to the jail, they put the plastic on the handcuff and pinned me to the wall just to take my beds off, put it in a brown bag. A year and a half went by, a year and 10 days went by. And as the court date, after the court, a year and a half. So now I kept writing on the paper sign here for the next court date, diversity. I learned it through y'all, diversity. So then I got to the point where I said, okay, counsel, cool, I have to put section 2. And they kept looking at that. And the first guy, I thought it was a judge, but I didn't know it was a commissioner, you know, like that. And so I was trying to use the language was solid, but just to do the best I know how. I mean, without y'all, I'd be really going, but some bad things had happened. 2013, they took my car. I had a car for forever. I put 15,000 in and put a brand new engine, brand new trans. I owe $25. And this is an out-of-state tag in North Carolina. I actually had already paid the ticket and I proved it with the receipt from the bank. So where's my car? You see, like that, this is 2013. Now, 2015, I've been in my house 41 years, and all of a sudden now, which thanks to y'all again, income tax. Give me $27,000, you know, so now I said, well, I guess that'd be a foreclosure next. And it is kind of put this together, you know. In other words, I believe it, you know, and I know the answer, but, you know, it's the form like a criminal suit and adverse claims, and, you know, unsanctioned policy. I do understand it, but, you know, just not the people that you associate. Like you said, a group can't do it by yourself. And but it had been for y'all, I really be messed out. I guess. So you know.
Well, you have to take credit too. Yeah. Because I can just say whatever, but if you don't study it on your own and understand it, what I said meant nothing. So you take credit for your study. You know what I'm saying? And when you're dealing with them taking your car and stuff like that, what they did with my car, you can ask my mom, she's right here. I used to park my car in front of the house with the commercial plates on it. They take it in every day. And again, my mother's right here. See my mind, right? I put private mortgage plates on my car. They stopped taking it. My line,
Yeah.
Then I came to the house of R.A.M. Was like super excited. I was like, Dr. Neal, look what I did. Private plates. She took pictures, posted it, got a couple thousand views. A week later, policy enforcers pulled me over. Now, also, my cousin's here, and she'll tell you I was traveling with these private plates for about 3 months in front of policy enforcers, right? Went to your brother's baby shower. What was it? Was it baby shower?
Yeah, it was a baby shower.
Yeah, baby shower. Traveling in front of policy enforcers, no problem. Right? All of a sudden, I come here,
You got some views.
give them some credit. Like, I studied what they said, it works. Now, here the Inquisition comes. Now, when you read the Rex 84 plan, it says that it basically fires situations at people. So they pulled me over. And you see the videos on my YouTube, I don't hide anything because there's nothing to hide, right? They pulled me over, I showed them my nationality card, and then nothing's happened because they had no jurisdiction. Then you see the policy enforcer, her name is Trisha Mercarcio. Trisha Mercarcio is her name, European. She's from the Connecticut, I don't want to say state police. I think they're marshals, martial law, right? She basically takes the VIN number and then they figure out that it's registered. I didn't register. When I thought I was buying my car, which ain't mine, Christian Black Codes of 1724, Article 22, right? It says black skin on anything. They registered it with the state. So they had jurisdiction over their car and they took their car. I was just in it. You know what I'm saying? So we actually need to face reality and stop saying my car ain't yours. That's just being honest. And I had to, in that situation, I was like, I was wrong. Believe it or not, they smashed their window and took me out. Is everyone following?
Yeah.
So that's it for the car situation. I already know how it is in your car. I mean, I would apologize, but it's not my fault, it's their fault, right? When it comes to taxes and stuff like that, can a foreigner tax you on your own land? Do you know what a closure is? A closure of a contract, you know what that is? No, a closure. A closure is when you sign a contract, meaning the agreement is done, you agree, finalized, that's a closure. So can they execute a foreclosure, four means before, right? Look it up in any dictionary, 4 means before. Can they execute a foreclosure after you sign something?
No. But they do.
So no. So now they're challenging you. We're attempting to do a foreclosure. What is this person going to do? And then us being incompetent, we think that we owe them something. You know what I'm saying? So challenge their claim. Challenge everything. Who are you? Who are you? Are you the holder in due course? Show me where, from your account, any gold or silver was transferred to any alleged account that you claim is mine. Prove that to me. Right? Or here, you can do this multiple ways. Because when you read a mortgage, you'll say mortgager. Does anyone know what a mortgager is? No. A mortgagor is the person who owns the estate. So they're telling you on a piece of paper that you own the estate. You know what I'm saying? So you're the mortgager. You're basically putting your house up as collateral to pay off a debt. What debt? Is everyone tracking? So if you and I play poker and we bet $5,000 and I can't pay that $5,000, I can put a mortgage on my shoes and say these are worth $5,000. So now, right? So now there's a lien on this. So now, if I don't pay you the $5,000 over the course of however many months, you get my shoes as collateral. That's a mortgage. And the foreclosure is supposed to be before you sign the closure, meaning you're just collecting the debt immediately. But we don't know that. Is everyone tracking? I don't want to go over anyone's head because this is very important. If we don't get this, we're basically going to be stuck in the same 400-year situation that hasn't added 1 year every year. You following? Every year you hear people say, we've been doing this for 400 years. You can't do that. So.
I just wanted to say, because you're very great at explaining that you need to challenge this, but what I want to say to us as a collective is we need to get more into the habit of challenging and publicizing our voice as far as sending in affidavits. You know, just speaking on my behalf, I've challenged my territorial places where I live numerous times, and getting better at it now, but, you know, the complaints stop. They really do stop. And, there's power in the case law. To study the case law, and it truly will set the situation for you. Depending on the evidence you did.
The power is in you. The case law is just stuff you can read. The power is in you. You get what I'm saying? Knowing it is fine, but if you don't know that it's within you, it doesn't mean anything. And try to make sure that you know this is very simple. It's not. Nothing about this is complicated. Anyone trying to make it seem like this is complicated is lying to you. Because it's not. This is our land, it's not theirs. Okay, got that in check. So why would I pay them? Anything, for anything. Food, shelter, housing. It's that simple. The other half is us going to them and saying, go ahead and discharge this electricity bill, because driving on 95, right, you'll see these crazy mega solar panel farms, which means they're getting free electricity, so what am I paying for? And we can just use that basic logic. You know what I'm saying? So use common sense. Just like in the Bible it says, observe all things which I command you, along with you always look, and you'll see. They got solar panel farms. It's free energy. What are you paying for? Yes.
Well, just real quick. Based on what you just said with the solar panel farms, I just want to say, when you think in terms of that we're technologically probably 500 to several thousand years behind what our ancestors knew and had when it comes down to the energy, we're paying for, there are sources, like you said, there are free energy sources that exist and have existed. And we have not gone backwards, but it's been those in so-called power who said, you know, things like when Tesla and others came up with these other things, said we'd rather kill you than allow, you know, what you revealed that was ancient to come forth, because somebody's got to get paid. And so we're still dealing with a lot of things that, you know, there are things that exist that have been suppressed, even down to, I was thinking today about how they're killing us with technology such as the cell phones. When our pineal glands have been so calcified, that was the ancient technology. We could communicate one to another without having to pick up something. Or it could have been through, like you said, the drum or some type of sound or rhythmic, you know, communication. We've been put behind the 8 ball and thrust into the darker of dark ages, and we think we're technologically advanced.
So I'd like to just comment on, you brought up how someone needs to get paid. That's a diversionary argument. The payment isn't real.
No, I don't think they have to, but that's what they want to.
Yes. That's what they tell us. Yeah. But it's them maintaining administrative control over our state. That's the main objective. It's not the payment, because they can print as much paper as they want. So it's never about the payment. It's always about controlling your life, 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 controlling all of our lives. That's what it's about. It doesn't, because they can print as much as they want. You know what I'm saying? It's just paper. That's just the medium of exchange that they're accepting. It could have been rocks. It's still, I'm not paying you crap. That's a great point. Because we can communicate. We can communicate with body language. Facial expressions. When I was in Japan, I didn't speak a little Japanese, and I knew what they were saying somehow. And I didn't know how I knew, I just knew. That's within each and every one of us. Any other questions? I'll give you the mic. The more we can make this an open discussion, the better.
So I have a question. Bro had said 8 locations of importance. What were the 8 locations, and what are their importance? My first question.
Well, you want to say?
My bad.
I'm
gonna exit. Okay, so it's not any specific order, but Homeland Security, the Department of Interior, Department of State, United States District Court, United States Justice Department, United States Department of Treasury,
the provost of the Marshall, and then the United Nations. Those are the 8 locations I was referring to.
It's not limited to those locations. You can send it to the Organization of American States too, if you want. You understand? And the more research you do, the more you say, okay, I can tell all these people. And then you'll find out quickly, okay, the solution is having more Moors. Or more competent Moors, I should say. Because we're everywhere, it's just not a lot of us are competent. Someone else have a question? Yes.
I just have a statement, and I think. Wait for the mic. Islam.
Peace.
Islam. It's just a statement that I would like to make. I think that Moors that are becoming conscious, such as myself, new to the culture and the civics and to all of these words that you guys have thrown around, and I'm trying to catch it, define it, and things like that. I think we need more workshops to fill out documents and to actually see it and go through it and do it and touch it to understand what is being said so that we can study.
Can I interject? So this is how I study. I found about Taj, I watched all of his videos on YouTube at the time, all of them, over and over and over and over again. Then I figured, okay, there's a law library somewhere. So I went to the courthouse, asked the clerk, where's Black's Law Dictionary? She took me to the dictionary, then I started to read. You know what I'm saying? So there's certain things that we have to do individually. Because how many classes has Taj done? How many classes have I done? How many classes have Abdul done? It's all on our individual capacity to study and comprehend for ourselves. Because I can tell you something, but that doesn't mean I understand it. Because she can tell you the same thing in a different way that you get better, but it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So if you study on your own and teach yourself, that's the best way to go. So if I say something like quit claim, you don't know what it means, just, okay, he said the word quit claim, and then it'll be done. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not dismissing what you're saying at all, because we should study together, at least within our families. But you save yourself, period. Yes.
Islam. One of the things that I would definitely say starting out in this movement is the most important thing you spoke about was reading. And even though you can open a book, you see the words, you can read them, but there's a lot of hidden messages in the word. So I found that learning etymology is the #1 key to your reading and your comprehension. And if you do not understand that, everything you're reading can be still in its wrong form. Because there, you have the connotation and you have the denotation of the word. And you have to know that we are subjugated under the connotation of the word, which is the wrong words. And when you learn the denotation of the word, and now when you go and you open up your Black's Law Dictionary, or you're looking at something, you say, wait a minute, this looks a little colorful. Mm-hmm. And then you can dig a little bit more deeper and say, oh, this is what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. So most importantly, etymology is the #1 key to your reading, because our reading, the foundation of our education, honestly, is tainted. It's been tainted from the foundation of the colonization to turn everything upside down, inside out, for us to forget and not know who we actually are, how to speak our language, our cultures, our understanding of that. So now we have to go back to the foundation, and the foundation is the true origin and science of the word. And if you're not getting that, you're still reading in the wrong mindset.
So there's a difference between connotation and denotation. Connotation is what a word can imply. Denotation is the true definition of a word. So I can say, I feel at home here. I'm using the word home connotatively because it's not home. This is a room.
in the house.
You get what I'm saying? So if we're reading something, as an example, the word want means to lack. So if you're trying to say, oh man, I want a better woman in my life, or I want a better man in my life, you're not actually calling on it, you're just making a statement. I lack a better man in my life, or I lack a better woman in my life. Instead of saying, I desire. You know what I'm saying? And this sounds simple, but once you learn this principle and you start reading documents, you'll see how they're just screwing people.
Right.
And the law of attraction is real.
Yeah. And once you study etymology, I've seen a class that Brother Abdul did on the consonant sound and language chart, which will help you understand etymology even further, and just phonetics, which is why they call us Phoenicians. Yes.
I'm sorry, yeah.
I had been studying stuff for a long time, and I realized that 1982, correct me if I'm wrong, in 1982, the Vatican came and with all the dictionary companies, rewrote the definitions and put up reference.
I'm not sure about that, but I do know in harmony with what you're saying, that after the fall of Granada, they started to burn books. And then when I remember in high school, when they was telling us about the Indians, when they came here, they did the same thing. They burned books to keep us dumb. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's the Inquisition, that's the Crusades, that's the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, Index Librorum Expurgatorius. That's exactly what that is, to keep us in this situation, to keep us mentally incompetent, which is what the word minor means and minority means. So I'm not sure about that, but I know that doesn't sound foreign to me.
Yeah, because I give you one example. You know how you put fluorine in water, so-called for treatment. Fluoride, fluorine, well, it's really fluorine. And in the books it says, oh, it's something to help your teeth. That's the lie. In actuality, fluorine is an odorless, colorless poison. It's also helps break down the immune system. So, right. So like I said, I started not reading any books from past that time. Definitely not a Webster's. And then really reading anything more so getting more acquainted with the Black's Law, because in that they operate under Sesame Trust Law. So you're the same language level, because really it's not a language. This is dog wag. Okay.
What language?
This is so-called English language you speak. It's dog wag.
High German.
Right, it's dog wag. It's not a language one. It's one. We restricted our heritage and our language and our culture.
But English isn't their language.
It's our language.
Actually, what I'm saying is this is not our language.
So hold on. History. So now since we're talking about English, German, and all these languages, there's something called Proto-Indo-European. Proto means before. So before Indo-European, or the family of languages that we call European languages like Dutch, German, French, all that English, there existed a commonality. It's African dialects. Even the word grammar, which is English, is derived from glyph, which they call Greek, which is really meta, or Mother Nature, or Egyptian hieroglyphs. So all of that is traced right back to Egypt, or Kemet. All of it. So look up grammar for yourself and you'll see. So it's our language, period, because it's all based on our language. So if the foundation is more science, and then they build the tower, then that tower is built on more science, period.
Foundation.
Yes. Which again, when you're dealing with, even if you see the word Phoenician, it's more science.
Yeah.
Pheno, phonetics, phone, sound, Etian, I-A-N, one skilled in. Phoenician is one skilled in sound. It's not a people. It's what we did.
That's right.
Well, wasn't it before it was even any language? There was this vibration.
Sound.
Right.
So that's why I said when you study the consonant sound and language chart, you see, like, as an example, that B, V, and P are all interchangeable. So when you see father in English and Vater in German and Pata, it's all the same thing. Or when you see God, Theos, and Huta, it's all the same thing. When you see the consonants on the language chart, G and H are gutturals, so they're interchangeable. So when you say God, you're saying Huta, which means to invoke. You follow? So if you want, write that down, consonant, sound, and language chart. The consonant is anything other than a vowel. A values are vowels, consonants aren't vowels.
How would you use that as far as, I mean, they added the letter J from the I,
Yeah.
Which there was no J, Latin, Greek, or Hebrew.
So
how did they come up with Jesus? That's why I'm using
yeah, but all I'm trying to show you is how to track that. So you're not confused with, well, we're speaking of European man's language. No, you're not. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't really strip us of our culture. They made us think that they did. But this is our culture.
Absolutely.
So wait a minute, when I say culture, does that mean our original language? We have no language.
Yeah, and I just told you how to find it. Use etymology, use the consonant sound language chart, and you can see, right? Because when you look at hieroglyphs, it's all based on nature.
Right.
So a word is just a way to put a thought in your head. You get what I'm saying? So when you look at hieroglyphs, they're putting images or thoughts in your head. That's all words are. Yes.
And just while the brother is mentioning etymology, you definitely want to get you a book, hardback, and something that you can certify and verify, definitely, be studious. But don't psych yourself out in the meantime. Like, there's a great, on my study, etymology website. It's literally Etsymon or EddieOnline.com. You can put these words in and look them up. And the reason I thought to bring it up is because he mentioned Proto-Indo-European. And, times tell us when you're reading something, if you don't know what it is, you go and look it up. So how some words you read, quote unquote, maybe example, Webster's dictionary, it might say this word is a noun. So when you look at etymology up, it says the root or origin of the word, where it comes from, whether that be a land, dialect, or people. So what I seen is, like he said, it's a commonality. A lot of words say it will say PIE as an abbreviation, meaning Proto-Indo-European. So you can see a lot of these words, and you can break down a lot of these common words. That's a good exercise for your mind. So you can see a lot of the things you're saying versus what you think it means, what it originally means. And like I said, you don't have to look online, okay, I'm gonna get etymology dictionary. Originally, I used to do this like what's called, like, when I get one, I'm gonna get hardback, one of the best black clothing I can find, everything like that. And you look it up and see the prices, like, all right, later, I'm gonna get to that though, But then you put off every word you think about. In the meantime, like I said, you can get your black law dictionary that costs $100. Come to the class one time, you're paying $10, get you a flash drive. Overall, you pay $13. Download the digital Black's Law Dictionary, 7 versions. You can't get you an etymology dictionary that's hardback. Go on the free etymology website, put every word that you want to look up. You know what I'm saying? Don't psych yourself out. You can do it, like you said. Do you want to be home and study? Do you want to save yourself? You know what I'm saying? I got it for you.
Say the website again.
The website is ETYM online, ONLINE.com. So again, ETYM ONLINE.
I use that website often. Sometimes I put new pages or just
Bookmark.
type that in. You have questions? So, do we all understand how this ties into diversity? Okay, so you say yes, how so?
Language.
More specific. Well, okay. We know the 3 prominent issues at law, right? What are they? Jurisdiction is the second one. Status is the first one.
Non-territorial subject.
Now, we talk about the different classifications of jurisdiction. I'm talking about the 3 prominent issues at law. That status, jurisdiction, what's the last one? That was status.
The matter.
That's jurisdiction. Adjudication. Yes. Now, what does jurisdiction mean? Break down. Juris means what? or JUS, or IUS means what?
Study of law.
Not the entire thing.
Positive.
Did I say jurisprudence or jurisdiction? Yeah, jurisdiction. Juris, or juris means right or positive. Diction means words. So if the second issue of law is jurisdiction, you might want to know which words you're using. That's why we're talking about etymology, the consonant, sound, and language chart, phonetics. Is everyone following? Because I'm getting some places that are kind of. You good? You sure?
Yeah, run over it again.
All right. The three prohibitions of law. I'm trying to write big. With the P up. That's what I'm saying. Status. Second one is jurisdiction. / venue. And the third one is adjudication.
What's the title?
Three promulgations of law, or three promulgations of law. Now, when you read Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, you read the definition of nationality, it'll say it determines one's political status. When you read the definition of political in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, it'll say pertaining to rights, the enforcement of rights, etc. Then when you read status, it'll say your standing state and your condition as it relates to the rest of the community, meaning your mental competence. So if you don't know your nationality, chances are you're mentally incompetent. You know what I'm saying? But it's not just knowing your nationality, it's knowing which laws apply to you and which don't, and knowing which language to use. As an example, you see a lot of these Indians saying, we have our own tribal court. What does tribe mean? So you're saying you have family court, so can you try a crime in family court? That's a jurisdiction of venue. That's the importance of language. You get what I'm saying? Yes. Which is dealing with diversity. Keep that in mind. Don't ever think that we're not talking about diversity.
So, how you mentioned the Indians, you mentioned that again with that. I mean, fresh off the etymology thing. Like I said, words you look up. I started coming back to words like indigenous when I was really studying Aboriginal, things like that. And I'm like, oh, indigenous, and I look up Indian. Okay, ties, but okay, no, we're not Indian. Okay, cool. So I started looking at things like Native, like, well, why did they say Native American? The Native actually means to be a subject of somebody else.
No, native is Latin, it means to be born.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's from NACIS.
Okay, right.
Yep.
So when they say Native Americans, they're actually saying the ones who are born as Americans.
Yeah, born in America. But there's a difference between Aboriginal and Native American. Do we know what Aboriginal is?
Aboriginal.
Yes. From, let's say away from, right? When you look at the etymology, Aboriginal means from the original. That's what it means. Now, again, it's important to know this, knowing the definition of words, because again, dealing with the Indian thing, they'll say we have Aboriginal title, and they'll try to say that's over a loyal title. But if you have from the original title, that means you don't have the original title. But they'll throw words like indigenous and Aboriginal to get our people stuck in this game where they maintain their gatekeepership and say who is and who's not part of the tribe instead of telling you what an loyal title is so you can take charge of your own life. So again, diversity.
And in the question, I said, the question about diversity, I was in a bank and I seen the banking institution, and I seen a quick advertisement on the television that speaks about Donald Trump says, I don't usually put it in the general media news anyway, so that's why I'm really asking these questions, I really don't know. Donald Trump is saying that in 2020, everyone will need at least 2 federal or state or federal approved IDs in order to get on flights at all. And I know you started the conversation or the floor with that in the beginning. So I'm just asking how does these things tie together? I'm pretty sure they might.
Exactly what things.
Sorry, more specifically, will people that do not claim a nationality that sign on with, a commercial identification, a commercial cards to identify themselves, be able to travel, how will diversity affect people who do have nationality cards that don't travel, and in which ways do you see possible error, and then also which ways it could be racially accepted, you know what I'm saying? How we can use it and exercise those things.
So, first, what does federal mean? Not you. How many forms of contracts are there? Verbal, written, which is, you can say expressed or implied. They expressly said that nationality cards or identification documents issued by foreign governments, they have to recognize. If you read the rest of it, you'll see that. So we're not worried about nationals. As far as the people who want to be black, Negro, colored, Indian, West Indian, Hispanic, Latino, whatever that is, as far as those people, their masters is to tell them what they can and can't do. Because when you read the Christian Black Code of 1724, it tells you that blacks, Negroes, Hispanics, colored, Indians, West Indians, they're all European property. That's why they say you can't own it, or you can't come in here, or get out. Us being nationals, you can't tell us what to do on our land. That's diversity. You know what I'm saying? So whatever they're doing with their people, their subjects, whatever, has nothing to do with us. That's the importance of diversity. And then when you read the Sons of Free Moors Act, it tells you the free Moors aren't going to be treated like the blacks. It's a different jurisdiction. Yeah. So they already admitted in their contract, their titles, that they recognize our music. Keep that in mind. Any other questions?
Yeah, is that Article 3, Section 2, and is that the Regal Junction case, and is that
yes.
The council court?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
what he said, and then prior to that, I see you got something up on the board, or I can't really see it.
Yes.
It's like,
so this is what I started with earlier. Can you hit the last one, please? I'll read it again. This is dealing with the so-called federal laws that the United States, these are their codes. Right? I'm sorry, so feel free to walk up to the wall and look at it. So this is Title 18 of the United States Code, subsection 1028, is dealing with fraud and related activity in connection with identification documents, authentication features, and information. When you scroll down to D, right, it states, let me get closer to the board.
The term identification document. D is a document.
You want the mic in something?
Okay. B3. The term identification document means a document made or used by or under the authority of the United States government, a state, political subdivision of a state, a sponsoring entity of an event designated as a special event of national significance, a foreign government, political subdivision of a foreign government, an international government, an international governmental or an international quasi-governmental organization which, when completed with information concerning a particular individual, is of a type intended or commonly accepted for the purpose of identification of individuals. Boris?
Your nationality?
Nationality.
There you go. So it's basically telling you that an identification document, as long as it contains particular information concerning an individual is a type intended or commonly accepted for the purpose of identification of a person. And it says, a document made or issued by or under the authority of the United States. A state, what's a state? A group of people bound together by common law. Is that specific? No, it's not. Any state. A political subdivision of a state, an entity of an event designated as a special event or national significance, a foreign government, which again, the Moorish nation is foreign to the United States. We all know this, right? So for those of you who don't know, when you read things like the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Moroccan Empire and the United States colonies, again, the treaty between the Moorish Empire and the United States colonies, it already tells you that we're two different nations. The problem we're having is we've been taught that via the 14th Amendment, that granted us citizenship. But then when you read the 13th Amendment, Section 12, the original 13th Amendment, Section 12, it says that descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. Why? Because the citizens or the natural inhabitants of the land can't be citizens of a foreigner on their land. Can the Moors go to China and then grant the Chinese people citizenship on their own land? No, they can't. That's why we're not citizens of the United States. Now, if you don't believe me, which I don't care to do or not, here's some documents from the Library of Congress. This is from the Congressional Globe, the official proceedings of Congress, published by John C. Rives, Washington, D.C., Saturday, April 9th, 1864. And you'll see that this is dealing with Article 3 of the Constitution, which they only show that there's two articles. Excuse me, Article 13 of the Constitution, which they only tell us there's two sections. There's 12 sections. So, can you read section 12, please? Sorry.
Taking my specs out.
Section 12, Tyler.
The traffic in slaves with Africa is hereby forever prohibited on pain of death and of forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaged therein. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens.
So again, that's diversity of citizenship. So since we can't be citizens of the United States or any state of the colonial union, they have to recognize our everything. And then again, there's a book called The Black Yankees, right? Black Yankees? I'm pretty sure it's called Black Yankees. And it tells you how the slaves, so-called slaves, it's a book for the Black Yankees. The so-called slaves, which we know the Moors, they would elect amongst themselves kings and queens, which their so-called master would have to recognize. Now, if you get rid of the word slave, and you get rid of the word master, you can see that they're talking about the rights of indigenous people, where they're recognizing who we elect in certain positions. It's just they're coloring it, right? Where color means fake, false appearance, right? They're coloring it to make it seem like we're subservient. That's not what it is. You know what I'm saying? Then again, congressional record, United States of America, Proceedings and Debates of the 90th Congress, First Session, Volume 113, Part 12, June 12, 1967 to June 20th, 1967, pages 15309 to 16558. I'm going to have my other assistant read this again. Just read the highlighted parts, just on this page, not other pages, just this page. This is about the 14th Amendment, which they taught us that made us citizens, because when you read Article 13, Section 12, right, it says descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. Then when you read, what's that? was it Mississippi? The slave in Mississippi, the famous slave case.
Dred Scott.
Yeah, Dred Scott. Dred Scott also said blacks aren't citizens. Because we can't be. Now, please report to the bank.
Mr. Roderick, Mr. Speaker, arrogantly ignoring clear-cut expressions in the Constitution of the United States, the declared intent of its drafters, notwithstanding or unelected federal judges, read out prohibitions of the Constitution of the United States by adopting the fuzzy haze of the 14th Amendment to legislate their personal ideas, prejudices, theories, guilt, complexes, aims, and whims. We have tolerantly permitted the habitual misuse of words to serve as a vehicle to abandon our foundations and goals. Thus, the present use the expansions of the 14th Amendment is a shame, serving as a crutch and hoodwink to precipitate, I don't know what this word is, you know, quasi-legal approach.
Yep, quasi-legal means fake legal.
Quasi-legal approach for overthrow of the tender balances and protections of limitations found in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I ask to include in the record following my remarks, House Concurrent Resolution 208 of the Louisiana Legislature, urging the Congress to declare the 14th Amendment illegal. Whereas the purported 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution was never lawfully adopted in accordance with the requirements of the United States Constitution because 11 states of the Union were deprived of their equal suffrage in the Senate in violation of Article V, when 11 southern states, including Louisiana, were excluded from deliberations and decisions in the adoption of the joint resolution. The 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. Was that right?
Purported?
Yeah. 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution is and should be held to the ineffective, invalid, null, void, and unconstitutional for the following reasons. The proposed 14th Amendment was rejected by none then 1/4 of all the states then in the Union, and it was never ratified by 3/4 of all the states in the Union, Article V.
So is the 14th Amendment constitutional?
No.
So do so-called blacks have citizenship in the United States?
No.
The only thing that they're granted is privileges on the wardship tenures as Christian property via the Christian Black Codes of 1724. So anything that we approach from that aspect is fraud. Yes.
That was a congressional record.
Yeah. Let me put it, I'll show them on the camera and then we'll give it past both of these. And I highlighted everything so you gotta read it all. This was one we read earlier about the 13th Amendment. This is the 14th. So hang it to you first.
How did no ability clause get in there? Section 20. Article 13, Section 20.
What about it? They can't grant any titles of nobility because they're not the nobles of the land.
I thought that applied to us.
Yes, we're the nobles of the land.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they can't grant any titles of nobility because it's not their land. So all these so-called esquires, you see,
Right.
they're frauds.
Right.
They're taking our heirship position because we won't. Because we're taught in their schools that we're someone else and our ancestors are from somewhere else.
And what about the party can't be
Citizens?
a lawyer because that's Section 20? No, because they're not nobles of the land. They're barristers, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, whenever conflict lawyers go in court, they don't smoke, they vote.
Once again, I was just funny what you said, showing like how things are in front of us and then knowing the words that you're using. How you said esquires, like esquires are frauds. And you think about like,
that title here is a fraud.
Because they can't grant the ability.
Yeah.
And I was saying, that's a funny situation because these same people are connected to things that connect to Hollywood. And culturally, we all seen the movie, most of us probably seen the movie ATL. And there's a character in it named Esquire who is a fraud. That was crazy.
They tell you.
Etymology.
They do that in movies all the time. All the time. There's a movie with Jack Black, the house with the clock in his wall, see where the guest. The new movie Robin Hood, where Jake Fox is a more man who helps a Knights Templar fight against the corrupt European crown. Then when you look at the Knights Templar shield and you look at Brown University crest, it's the same thing. Then in SoCo, Rhode Island, if you go to Brown University, right across the street, they'll say, John D. Rockefeller Library. Then when you read the quote from John D. Rockefeller's business agent in 1913, it says, we shall not try to teach these people anything. We shall not try to make these people into men of letters, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have ample supply. So they tell you everywhere. Again, if you go downtown Providence, there's a place called One Turks Plaza. They got a big Moorish head on it with a turban and a crescent moon. How can we know Indian if we're Indians? This is the Alhambra Circle in a moorland street right before a Shriners Temple in Cranston and so-called Rhode Island. And they got this right on the statue. But it's a European area, so Asiatics. If you go on the other side of Broad Street, that's where all the Asiatics are. Is the quality in the libraries alone is vastly different. There's 501c3 libraries on the south side of Prague. There's free William Paul, Everyone's Welcome Library in Cranston. Quality dictionaries. Yes.
I had traveled to the territory of New York, and I took a visit to the building that has been registered, what we call federal homes. And outside of the building, there's this statue plaque of George Washington kneeling, and as if he's praying to something, you never know. But on the inside of the building, it was funny. It said what that plaque represented, and it said that the reason for that plaque is that George Washington was refusing the title of king or emperor, and was sworn in as the first president. Well, how can you refuse something that you would never have access to in the first place? So when you look at things like this, and if you go in the area, you'll see that they have really whitewashed the entire museum. They will show the so-called Indians are Europeans. It's really a joke. It's really a joke what they're making. They're making this huge joke to show that, yes, we're on your land, we conquered your land, now you figure out how to get back.
So, just to add in, we also have to stop calling them white.
Yeah.
You got Black's Dictionary, right? Can you read free white person? For everyone. You can come on stage too, show the camera. Because again, go to any courthouse and they have this book. Go to any attorney's office and they have this. Any so-called politician, they have this. You'll see pictures of me and someone running for mayor and another person running city council, and we talk about this stuff freely. Freely. Remember we had a conversation about how all these politicians are corrupt? They all know this. All of them. All of them. All of them. All of them.
Which edition? Wrong.
Fourth edition. Yes.
What the part where they pre-pretors, with signs for pretors, but they keep saying president? What's up with that?
Well,
I mean, this is etymology, I know, stuff like that. Yeah.
I just don't pay too much attention to that.
Okay.
So can you read again, free white person? Just start from right there.
Free white person. It includes all European Jews, more or less, in the mix.
Now stop right there. What did I just say? All European Jews, more or less intermixed, meaning what? They have to be mixed to be considered white. Now mixed with what?
Intermixed with people of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, Slavic descent. It includes Magyars, Lats, and Finns, and the Basques and Albanians. It includes the mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants.
Can you stop? Say that one more time.
It includes the mixed Latin, Celtic Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal. The mixed Greek, Latin, Phoenician, and the North African inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. It does not mean Caucasian race.
Say that one more time.
It does not mean Caucasian race.
What does not mean Caucasian race?
Free white person.
Oh. It said more, it said, read the first line again. Who was it? Jews, something like that? It includes what? All European Jews, what?
It includes all European Jews more or less intermixed.
More or less intermixed. And then it said more, didn't it? I'm confused. Can you read the definition of black more, please? And just for the record, this is the American Heritage Dictionary of the English language, regular dictionary. Please read blackamoor.
Blackamoor, any dark-skinned person.
So does white mean skin tone? I'm starting to think it means something else. You get what I'm saying? And then what did we see a few months ago? This prince in Europe, right, had to marry this Asiatic queen who was mixed because they only get the royalty through the Moorish blood. That's why they promote that interracial stuff. Then they get through hereditaments land claims here through our blood, through her blood. You know, male don't really got the mitochondrial DNA like that. The females do. That's why they mix with our women. Not because, well, you know, they're open and they're open to it. No, they need the bloodline. That's how they maintain their status, basically. You get what I'm saying? So when you see things like that, they're not whitewashing you. They're just lying. Because white means purity, purity means God, God means the land, and this is our land. They ain't white. Question?
Yeah, I don't want to. I want to stay on point. Yeah.
Now, well, so everything is on point because this is all dealing with diversity. This is all dealing with our birthrights, and it just shows you how vast it goes. Because we can talk about a structured class and talk about the same things over and over, but if we don't make this a common discussion, it's going to go over a lot of people's heads. So never apologize.
Okay, going back to about the ID. Now, I actually have it.
What is that?
This is a passport and a passport card. Mm-hmm. How I did it was I did it through you heard of moonshine?
So
that was the site. That was the site. So I did it that way. I put it out everything, and I did it as a state national.
A national rule state.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania is not a nationality.
No, okay.
So, listen to what you just said. What did you just call that? A state national?
Well, let me the wrong terminology.
Well, what is it?
I'm born in this land.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just asking, what is that?
Well, what is that? This is
and it says you're a state national?
Internally.
What does that mean?
In this system.
All right. What does the word nation mean? Etymologically, you said it earlier. Or naturally. Well, when you look up, I'll just do this. So when you look up the word national, it'll say native or nativity, which is Latin meaning to be born. What is Pennsylvania? It's a municipality. Can you be born in a municipality, or can a municipality give you birth? No, it cannot. You know what I'm saying? So, and what I was about to say was, which I don't necessarily need to do it. If you just Google the United States codes on passports, they'll say they'll only issue passports to those who have allegiance to the United States. Look it up. Only those who pledge allegiance to the United States can get passports. So it doesn't matter what name the free it doesn't. You're pledging allegiance to the United States. That's why you have that. Look it up.
That wasn't my intention.
I know. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure you were looking for the remedy, just like we all are. But this is the importance of knowing what words mean. Because if you knew what the word national meant, it means to be born. You can only be begotten from a woman.
Correct.
Not a municipality. Not a so-called state, because a state is a group of people. Ain't no group of people having babies. Only women have babies. You know what I'm saying? So again, diversity. Can't get nothing from them. I mean, you can legally, because you contracted for that.
So basically, you telling me this means nothing?
No, it means something, because they recognize it. But within their system, which is still under them. Our goal is to get from under them. So again, Moorish Consulate is supposed to be doing that. We need more people, part of just Moors, period. I'm not saying you have to be necessarily part of that. I'm just saying that's something that a consulate is supposed to handle. That's Article 3.
Take 2.
And Article 6 dealing with the treaties, which is dealing with consular affairs. Yeah, of the Constitution.
Why would Eisenhower, 1754, disregarded, phased out, council court, but yet they recognized it when I used it, and I was surprised. You know, I was shocked. I'm still very proud.
So now you're talking about an individual victim. A lot of more than individual victims. They got rid of council court, which is for all of us.
I thought we got it back.
No, yeah, we
brother Todd, the grand chief,
we
grand master, everything, yeah.
Yes, we reestablished.
I'm proud of y'all. Thanks, man. I needed that.
We reestablished the Moorish Consulate. Yes. They try to remove the venue. That's why we reestablished it as a people, not asking someone to do it. We did it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's diversity.
Thanks to you all, I won.
Great. Thanks to you, you won.
Oh, I won. It took a year and 10 days.
So, any other one? Yes, yes.
The main question when I was actually about this was really, okay, after going through doing this here, does it actually change my status?
What is status?
Estate.
Yes, and part. Status is your mental competence. So does that change your mental competence? No, it doesn't. See? No. Huh?
I said, so it's a lie.
Well, it is, but they recognize it because it's their lie. You get what I'm saying?
Well, then I'm interested in the one that supersedes.
That would be our allodial passports or our allodial nationality cards, because when you read the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, it says humans have the right to enter and exit any country that they see fit freely. So there's no need for a passport. Because when you deal with the Act of State doctrine, every sovereign state, every sovereign nation, because state means nation is a state, recognizes the sovereignty of every other state, every other nation. So if I see a nationality card from Brazil, I recognize that. If the Brazilians see a Moorish nationality card, they recognize it. No need for no passport. Because the Europeans established that to gain control over people's movements. Right. Because when you study political science, when you study natural science, currency is everything. You get what I'm saying? So they did that to control movement or currency.
Could you say it's an affidavit? That's important. Huh? That's why it's an affidavit.
Affidavit of what?
The national card. Like why we can travel with it, because it's affidavit.
It is a declaration.
Yeah.
But it's just reaffirming who you are. That's all the nationality card is. Any other questions? You good on that? We can keep talking about it until you get it.
No, it's funny because I do actually have it. I do have one.
What?
The
nationality card? Yeah. So let's just do this. I'll just give. Have you read the United Nations Declaration on Rights? Declaration on Human Rights?
No.
Well,
that's not part of this, is it?
That's from Shalom.
Yeah.
It's the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights. It'll tell you that we have the right. I'll just look it up real quick, just for the record, but also do study on this document on your own. And then you'll see the connection between the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights and the Constitution and the treaty. When you study them, you'll see that before the United Nations, we've been doing what the United Nations are doing. They ain't create nothing. This ain't no new, our people been doing this. Which is how we were able to recognize the United States in the first place. Right?
If that's the case, why aren't you saying United States instead of saying Turtle Islands?
When I say United States, I'm talking about the United States Corporation Company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How joint resolution 75, how that ties in?
Let me find this document. Article 13 of the UN Declaration on Human Rights. It states everyone has a right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and return to his own country. What do you see passport there? Because then when you read stare decisis, which says a right which is free and open to all that is subject to a license or a tax. A passport is permission to pass the port. Permission is not a right. This is Article 13, Section 1 and Section 2, or Clause 1 and Clause 2. Yeah, it's trash. But that's just, they'll say things like state national, knowing people don't know what a national is. Because you can't be a Rhode Islander. You can't be a Delawarean. They're not bloodlines. That's status, knowing that. So when people say correct your status, correct your concepts. And they talk about status correction papers, there's no such thing. They can't sell you a status correction papers. I can't sell you mental competence. How do I do that? How do I do that to you? They sell it for like thousands of notes because they know people are in a situation where, like this brother right here, needs or desires a passport, so they know just, hey, they can answer the right thing. But that's the issue. It's not. And you would know that if your status was correct, and I'm not talking down on you at all, so please don't do that. Just know that, recognize that that's one of our problems. We're so eager to get out of this that we're not necessarily paying particular attention. You know what I'm saying?
What's status? What's the definition of status?
You want to read it? One standing state condition.
Let's see. The rest of the community. Oh, you white? That means you white.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, okay.
That's my reflection. So I just don't understand. We have to take a whole new church.
Yeah.
All right, status, come out the National Dictionary for condition. Status, standing state or condition. The legal relation of an individual to the rest of the community. The rights, duties, capacities, and incapacities which determine a person to a given class. A legal personal relationship not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties. And at the bottom here it says it also means the state.
Do you know why I use the state?
Yeah, because white.
Yes, but because if you're not mentally competent enough to manage your estate, then you have no rights to your estate. Well, not that you have no rights, you might be a minor and you can't take care of your estate. So someone else does until you're mentally competent, until your status is correct. You get what I'm saying? So therefore, they keep us in that minority status or ignorant of these basic principles, and they're able to steal our state via probate or foreclosures. You know what I'm saying? Because if my mother gives me the house, right, but she gives it to a strong name, then Europeans have ownership over that via the Christian Black Codes. So they can take it to probate and say, well, you can't get this house or whatever. Because that's their trust. That strong name is their trust. You get what I'm saying? My trust would be my mother said, I can get the house. That's a different trust. She entrusted me with the house. You know what I'm saying? Sure? So when things go to probate, it's to certify wills. If this is my sister, and my mother passes and she says, okay, she gets the house, I don't need a European to verify no will. That's what I'm saying. She wrote it down. That's all. You know what I'm saying? They're taking the position of parents contrary, meaning there are parents and they can tell us what to do because we're minors. The word minor means mentally incompetent. Yes, ward, you know what ward means, right? Ward means guardian. So there's nothing wrong with wardship. Like once our nation rises to its sovereignty and we see other Asiatics who are mentally incompetent, they are our wards and we're to do things in their best interest. The problem is Europeans aren't doing things in our interest. So don't get the concept confused that a ward is bad. You get what I'm saying? Yes. It's bad if you're on the wrong side and you're still in your state. But most of the time, it's not them still in your state, it's them threatening to do something and you leaving, so you abandon your state. Which, interestingly enough, it talks about that in the Quran. Usually a little bit. Any other questions while I find this?
What was the Quran?
The Quran with Q. The Quran Muhammad.
No. I'm saying this is no.
Oh, this is translation and commentary by Abdullah Yusuf Ali. So be careful what Quran you're reading, because there's some that are versions by Europeans. This one is translated by an Asiatic. So there's a difference between someone's version and a translation.
So real quick, before you put there, then is there something wrong with the noble?
Huh?
Is there something wrong with the noble?
No,
Is there something wrong with the noble? The noble Quran? Was it just the language?
No. I wasn't talking about any specific Quran.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying just be careful which Quran you're reading.
Say version or.
Yes, version or translated by, because remember, when you read a newspaper article about Noble Drew writing the Quran with the K, it talks about how people often insert their own agendas into these types of books for dogmatic reasons. That's why I'm saying be careful.
Okay.
Because I put a post on Facebook. It was like chapter 4, verse whatever. It said, men have power over women in one version. Then I went to this one, same chapter, same verse. It said men are to protect women. So look at which one, you know what I'm saying? Be careful with what you're reading. So, any other questions? Those are the questions.
After you can go into it after you read the verse, please. I would like to hear your embellishment of the difference between Muslims and Muslims.
Yeah, so Muslim limbs, Muslim, MOSLEM, muscle, organ, skeletal system, limbs, electrical system, and magnesium. Magnesium is produced in the brain for the brain to function. So the only difference is your status or what you know they are. You know what I'm saying? That's like saying, what's the difference between the moon and the sun? Well, they're both lights. So one just during the day or during the night. Different energies, but it's basically principle the same. Excuse me while I flip through the pages. Feel free to ask away while I do this. This book actually talks about doing commerce. It talks about discharging debt.
Oh, it's everything.
Yeah.
All kinds of festivals.
Yep, right on.
Science, everything.
So claiming the nationality, that would be the first step in getting, let's say, U.S. citizenship change, getting out of that, basically.
No, because based on the 13th and 14th Amendment, there is no U.S. citizenship. It's just we thought we had U.S. citizenship.
Right.
So that's really what the distinction is, us knowing that we never had.
Right. But as far as the corporation is concerned, we're in the corporation until we make that declaration.
Yes and no. We begin to understand mentally that we're not part of this system. Then when we bring it back to reality, because remember, divine and national, when we bring it back down to earth, we see that they're occupying us. So by default, we're part of their system because we still use their private commercial paper because they created a monopoly over everything. So yes and no, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not that simple. Because they're still here, the democracy's still here. They're not just Europeans, Asiatics claim to be, oh, Democrat. They're part of the problem too. They're still here, and their policies are still here.
So how do you dissolve their policy?
Reestablish the republic.
Yeah, change the language.
Change our language.
Hashtag abundance for president.
So I got the verse in the Quran. This is chapter 2, verse 243. This is dealing with foreclosures. No, not Abdul El Cleveland. Yes, chapter 2, verse 243. This is about foreclosures. And when I brought up how we abandon our state because of fear of these Europeans. Yeah. Didst thou not turn thy vision to those who abandoned their homes, though they were thousands in number for fear of death? Although our people leave the house because they think the Europeans are going to do something to them, because these Europeans are constantly promoting every February so-called Black History Month that we're getting whipped, killed, all this BS. So they're pumping fear into our people. So for that alone, we leave our houses, right? Allah said to them, die. Then he restored them to life. For Allah is full of bounty to mankind. But most of them are ungrateful. What does that mean? Now remember, in the same book, it says these are basic fundamental principles. And the other half are allegorical stories, it says right in the book. It's basically telling you, get over fear and you'll be straight. These Europeans don't want smoke. That's why they work so hard to pump fear into us. And I'll share a story with all of you once the cameras turn off about a foreclosure that I dealt with. And they stopped sending things in the mail. There's nothing on the county record. And I'll just show you what I said. And it wasn't threatening, it was peaceful. It was, I will die before I leave this house. Period. That doesn't mean I'm gonna die. That's the lengths I'm willing to take for my estate. That's just me personally. That's what that said to me. You get what I'm saying? Then when you read chapter 24 in this book, it talks about it's no fault of your own turns into abandoned houses that's not used for living if you can use it for another purpose, which is dealing with the rights of indigenous people, saying we have the right to our land resources back. Then when you read Article 1, Section 3 of the Rhode Island State Constitution, it says we cannot be punished for our religious beliefs. So if my religious book is saying I can go in these houses and fill up these houses for my people, you can't punish me for that. But all of us need to know that. And be careful with these so-called imams claiming to be religious. Because a group of Moors went to a local imam and said, well, what do you think about this? Quick agent turn on real quick. Oh, well, that's saying, you can enter into public venues, but if you go into someone's house, you gotta knock on the door. But how? What? And then the version of the Quran they gave us, it was adulterated.
I've heard that term, but I don't know what is an imam specifically?
An imam is basically like a grand sheikh. It's the pastor. Imam means means something. It means the word actually means something.
I-M-A-N.
Yep, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But these are things that we need to know exist. These are our rights, and they're protected by basically every constitution.
Going pro to opposite.
You understand what I'm saying?
Going pro to opposite.
Yeah, and that's also why I say be careful what version you're reading, because they have adulterated versions. Because they keep people under them. And go for yourself and figure it out for yourself. That's what I do. Whenever I share these things, I'm not saying things because I heard it. There's pictures of me in these places, talking to these people for a reason. So go see for yourself. Any other questions?
Resolution 75. How drug resolution 75? How do they do with nationality card? I thought that was enough, no?
What do you mean?
Say that's an affidavit, say that we have the right to be,
So that's one municipality. That's one municipality who said that. That's just that municipality. They're just saying things. They're not granting anything. That's just on the record that we can use to prove, like, hey, this works. But we don't necessarily need that. Remember we went to Chicago, Cook County, and we went to R.A.M. Emanuel's secretary. This is all on YouTube. They messed with the video with audio studios. We were all in and out of Cook County, looking for the proclamation that R.A.M. Emanuel signed December 22nd, 2014. Right?
Yeah, he gave us right?
He didn't give us anything. It was a proclamation. Right. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Right?
He said he had it right.
Language.
Yeah. So we went to Cook County looking for this document. The secretary gave us attitude. She said, we have it, but we're not printing any more copies. So that's a confirmation that the document does exist. They're just not giving it to us.
How did you enforce it? How did you enforce it?
I didn't force you to do anything. Just free will. And I don't know if you've ever been to Chicago City Hall, but there's armed guards everywhere. Everywhere. Before you even get it, they're everywhere. Which is, I mean, in my city hall, it ain't like that. Well, not my city hall, but in the municipal pattern.
No, it is yours.
Well, yeah, but in the municipal city of Providence, that city hall is not. They're strapped in there. It was police, marshals, sheriffs, all of them were there. So I didn't force them to do anything.
I didn't mean it by that physically. I meant what either type of document or procedure or.
They're supposed to just give it to us.
Yeah, right.
But we're dealing with criminals.
Right.
So how do you force a criminal to do something?
Right. The State Department not allowing us to get our stuff done over there anymore. Yeah. They just shut it down, and it's the same thing. Like they won't give you, they won't allow you to authenticate. I was just saying it's the same in the District of Columbia, where anytime that I have proclaimed or changed anything, I spent a lot of money, whether it was right or wrong, but I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm glad that I did because I was able to use it in court and get my children out of the custody of the state of Delaware at the time. But the State Department, we have United States, which to me is fine. It's United States seals. So it's saying that this is how I want to move. I want to move forward as a Moor. I want to move forward homeschooling my children, not vaccinating. I'm going to set up my own business, my own trust, all this type of stuff. But when we got to that State Department, it was the same thing. It was like they brought the National Guard out. And at this point, you're not going to be belligerent. At this point, you're not going to force anything. But that's how you know that what you're doing is right and exact. That everything that you're asking for is on point. Because why all of a sudden, and when you come at yourself, which is a foreigner, they damn sure it's like, at first it's cool until they hear the way you speak. Like, hey, you just from Delaware? Why do you want this stuff? So they're just they shut it down. And it's because we started coming in numbers to say, hey, we want to authenticate, we want to get apostilles and stuff like that. And it was just only a year before I started doing this that they were allowing, but it just got shut down. And same thing, when we were trying to create a union of sort of all the Moors a while ago, there was Sheikis L and Sister Sheikis L and then another brother. They were trying to do the same thing, wouldn't give them an actual official copy, and that's what we wanted. We wanted to get official copies so that we could use, right, certified and all of that, and they wouldn't give it to us either. I didn't personally go like you guys, but I had like my people, they went.
Yeah, so the thing with us is they never denied that the document
Exactly.
existed. They just said, we're not giving copies anymore, which means the document exists, they're just not getting copies. Yes.
What I learned to deal with, how to deal with these criminals is now I get their bond. That's what I was doing.
Now, there's certain territories like ours where you ask them, let me see your oath to the Constitution. They're like, huh? What's that? Yeah, I know, but that oath is associated with that bond. Because that oath is a bond.
Right.
The oath itself is a bond.
What I mean by that is I hit them in the pocket because that's what they do.
Oh, yeah. I'm not refuting that. I'm saying certain territories, they're going to give you some fight back into getting those bonds. Or if they can get their oath. And they might even call it something else. Because in so-called Rhode Island, they call it a certificate of engagement, not an oath to the Constitution. So when we go there asking for an oath to the Constitution, they're like, what is that?
So they super de facto.
Yeah. Yes. Let me see if I have a copy with me.
Another thing I wanted to point out, there's another Moor by the name of R.A.M.
Yep.
He has a book that will show you how to look up these people's bonds, numbers, and how to place liens against them.
Yes, you're supposed to just be able to go to the state house, city hall, whatever, because it's supposed to be public record. The problem is they're hiding.
Yeah, or they will lock you up.
Yeah. So here's what here we go. Now this wasn't certified. My cousin and I have a list of several names certified and stamped from the Secretary of State. This is State of Rhode Island Province Plantations elected officials. Now don't get offended by the word plantation. It just means farm. Nothing bad, nothing negative. It's all it means. Certificate of engagement. Don't say oath. Certificate of engagement. Certified to be filled out and delivered to the Secretary of State within 30 days after the date of commission pursuant to subsection 36(1)(4) of the Rhode Island General Laws. They don't say the Constitution. It says the Rhode Island General Laws. Province, county, and the city of Providence, and the county and state aforesaid on the 6th day of January 2015, I, Gina M. Raimondo, hereby make oath to support the Constitution, which one? And laws of this state, what state? And the Constitution of the United States. Not for the United States, of the United States. And faithfully and impartially to discharge, just like you discharge a mortgage, according to the best of my abilities and duties of the office of governor, signed Gino Raimondo, address 125 Morris Ave. Province, Rhode Island, 02906. Certificate of engagement, not an oath of office.
Did they cause a fighting back?
Huh?
They caused a fighting back?
Well, we had to struggle to get this document. And then we had to wait. How long? You want to kind of talk about that process? Basically, in the basement of City Hall, in the basement of the State House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
thank you.
Dying. We went to the State House. They gave us the runaround because they relabeled what the document was. So I sent an email. In our State House, you can request any information. There's a format for it. There's people to contact. There's an information department, except for this department. And there's no formal paper. So you have to go there in person and just demand it on hand. So I sent them emails. I tried to use a format. I gave them a list. I called a couple times. We showed up a couple times. It took us showing up there with the list again and saying it, we want it now.
And then she did it that day.
And she did it that day, and we had to wait maybe a little over an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good job.
What's the new name?
Certificate of engagement.
I don't understand how you get rid of that. Because take an oath of office. The Constitution.
People are frauds.
De facto.
I also wanted to point out that, being that, our forefathers and foremothers allowed them to start contracting here.
Under certain stipulations, though.
Right, that no matter what corporation under the union is trying to, adjudicate that this is the way they do it, they're all agreeable within the union. So you could, for so to speak, use laws that are in like North Carolina and Virginia.
It's called common law.
You know what I mean? So always keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's on the Canada law. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the wrong one.
So remember, the United States is under treaty agreements to recognize our sovereignty.
It's got to be in proper.
And to recognize what we say, what we ask and what we demand. But what happens when we don't demand those things? They're not to honor anything. And then when you do start researching and finding, then they start saying, well, I don't know what the Oval Office is. And then they said, oh, you get a certificate of engagement. It's not an Oval Office. We literally went to Mayor George E. Orza, so-called mayor, Asiatic. George E. Orza's office, spoke to his secretary and said, where's his oath of office? They were like, what? What's that? We had to explain to them it's an oath that they take to the Constitution. They said, oh, we don't have that here. That's crazy. How would the mayor not have his own so-called oath and his own so-called office? They're frauds. Yes.
Wouldn't that be reported at the clerk's office?
Yeah.
That's where you went, right?
Yes, but it wasn't there.
And our ancestors set that up.
Yeah, we said everything. The problem is they're not honoring law. Because what? We don't enforce law. So if no one's enforcing law, then they don't have to do anything. Yes.
Well, I realize that not that they're not enforcing law.
No, we're not enforcing law.
Right. They're enforcing the statutes, it's not law.
It's their law.
That's what it's not law.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, it is law.
Public, public policy.
It is law, but it's their private law.
Right.
You understand? But it is law. It's just, we don't have to abide by it.
Right.
It's like the laws of CBS don't apply to you unless you're an employee of CBS. So it is law. It's just not applicable to us unless we agree. The problem is we've been agreeing ignorantly. But ignorance of the law is no excuse. Because if you agree, you agree. Any other questions? Is anyone confused about anything? You good on everything? So since we're good on everything, do you have to pay a toll tax?
No.
Why don't you have to? One person at a time. Wait, relax. So when I asked, do we have to pay toll taxes? The crowd said no. Or someone explained why.
It depends on your status.
Contract.
Well, how do you do that?
Who wants to go first? Getting rowdy here. Come on down.
So you only have to pay a toll tax if you're dealing with commerce. If you're traveling in your own personal vehicle, you aren't working, you don't have to pay. Excuse me.
Car.
Thank
you.
I
was like,
you don't have to
tax.
You don't have to pay a tax if you are not driving a commercial vehicle.
So, which part of the Constitution can you use to support your argument?
Four.
Close. Article 6?
Of the Bill of Rights.
No. You were close when you said Article 6. Anyone can answer.
What's the question?
She said that we don't have to pay a toll unless we're operating within a commercial capacity. I stated which part of the Constitution can we use to support that claim. You want to answer?
I'm sorry, I have my mic before I had a question.
Oh, you did? What was the question?
So you said, she mentioned that we don't have to, or it's mentioned, but she mentioned, we don't have to use it if we're traveling and not driving a commercial vehicle. You mentioned earlier that even with the status correction, that vehicle is registered to them and they're in. So how are we ever not in that commercial tank if we're in that vehicle? And do I have to build a car from scratch?
Great question. No. When you do more study, you study standard science and res judicata, it says that unless one is using their automobile for a commercial capacity or for the public, then they're not liable. They're only liable to the extent that they use their automobile for commerce. You get what I'm saying? So you can have commercial plates on your car because you can be your own private taxi. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't have any passengers, and you have automobile guests, then you're not operating within that commercial capacity, and commercial laws don't apply to you.
But then the commercial, but I understand the language that, I understand what you were saying, exactly, and how the terminology changes. What I'm asking is, if the car was created by a commercial entity, it's registered to them.
Who are you?
Yes,
Who are
it's your status. Because they ain't asking the car to pay them, they're asking you.
Right. It's in the.
So just because you have the plates on, don't mean that they can just do whatever they want. So now again, which part of the Constitution can you use to substantiate your claim that you do not have to pay toll tax when you're traveling? Article 6 of the American Constitution states that all contracts and engagements entered into before the adoption of the Constitution shall be valid against the United States as in the Confederation. Meaning the Articles of Confederation apply. When you read Article 4 of said Articles of Confederation, it says the free inhabitants of each state is allowed free ingress and regress into every other state. No toll tax. Yes.
So if you're traveling from New York to Maryland and you incur all these different tickets, because the place that you have is straight to your address. And
Just to interrupt, that's part of the problem with it.
yeah, well, part of the problem.
Because that gives them the ability to send anything to you.
Yeah, because now, especially with the New York State, if you don't have an easy pass,
Yeah.
coming out.
The Department of Transportation will send something in the mail that you
It's
didn't
twice
know
as
to
much
install,
as
feel
what's
free to put up your easy pass number, blah, 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 blah.
So, thank you. So to combat that, those tickets that they're sending to you, you now can
Send them a writ.
send them a what?
A writ of discovery. And there's a few things that you can ask them.
Okay.
Because when we're dealing with the United States, we're dealing with the colonial union, right? We're dealing with diversity of citizenship, right? Now, are you European?
No.
Which means that the European colony can't tax you. So you can ask them off writ. Head of the Department of Transportation. Prove if you're asking that I, Jamal Cleveland, will obey or you this toll tax or this straw man, right? Then clarify or prove whether or not I'm a citizen of the state of New York, because the state of New York is a European colony. Right? Also, prove that at the time of the incident that you claim I owe you toll tax, I was operating within a commercial capacity. Now that should be easy. And you can say this in the affidavit as well, in the writ as well. Because most of us, right, most of us have a so-called job, right? A so-called employer, right? If you're operating for hire, that means your employer is hiring you to do that. So if they want to prove that you're operating for hire, all you got to do is ask your employer, do you pay this person to drive? And that employer most likely is going to say no. Which means they don't have subject matter jurisdiction to even ask you for tolls. You follow me? Then you can also say, what are you asking for? Private commercial paper or gold and silver coins? And let them clarify. And then if they're asking for private commercial paper, you can say, okay, I'll counter offer you these Moorish notes. And if they deny that, per Uniform Commercial Codes,
Article 3.
it's 3-603, 3-604, which states that a so-called creditor can charge a so-called debt. Then 603 states that as long as you make a counter offer and payment and they reject it, that's discharge. As long as it's of equal value, which we as a nation, we as a nation of people can say, our mortgage note is worth 5,000 more than, 5 to 1 or 5,000 to 1. Which again, now this is kind of going higher in the civics level. Why the Woodrow said it's important for us to maintain a national treasure so we can do things like that. And that's all stemmed off toll tax. This goes deep. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
But I'm sorry, I feel like it doesn't, it doesn't answer your question, in my personal opinion. Somebody kept, losing cars around here and stuff like that. Like, I think people, these are great questions, and I like the fact that you're right and you're spot on and you're answering. So let's say you do go through that and you go through all of that. If you know the codes, like in Delaware, they have the right to take your car if you have not paid those fines. So you could be driving, and now they put a warrant out for your arrest if you don't pay. So you have to be willing to go through that process. And it has to be more of us that are willing to go through that process. And the more of us that are willing to go through that process are willing to make sure that there is a national treasury, that the mortgage council is working, but that's the problem. Like, it's really easy to say, oh, you can ask my employer, call Drop Squad Kitchen. And yeah, but the problem is that, right, and so that you know that you might lose your car in the process, and because you know you might lose your car in the process, why you're going back and forth, doing the things that are actually lawful and right and justifiable and ancestors on your back and all that type of stuff, but you might lose your job. You might, not be able to be an employee anymore because you don't have transportation, which now means that you might not be able to put food on the table for your children, which might mean you have to go further into the state and now go get food stamps. Do you understand where I'm going? So I would like for you to address that, because to me, I feel like that's why a lot of us are not able to, we love this information and we're ready to ride or die, but at the end of the day, people feel as though we still have to survive.
You're absolutely right.
Actually, awesome.
You're absolutely right.
That's
But when we're dealing with things like, you know that?
Yeah.
So when we're dealing with things like, you say they'll take your car, it's not your car, it's theirs. And when you say things like, you'll lose your job, well, you already signed as an employee, which is a servant, which is already dealing with the Christian Black Codes of 1724. So instead of working for someone else, more is supposed to be industrious.
That's where.
When you read the articles from the prophet, more had markets. They had manufacturing companies. They had their own businesses, so they weren't working for anyone else. So they have that social security, secure within their own society, because you have a grocery store, I'm only going to go to you, now you're secure. That's what this is. You trying?
That's where I wanted you to go. That's where I wanted you to go, because I feel like that's the only. I feel like that's the only way out. And a lot of people be like, where you been for the past 5 years? You fell off. I didn't fall off. I got on.
Exactly. All people need to know that we don't need licenses. Like my mother once, she always wanted to do a daycare thing. And then, as I got older and figured stuff out, I asked, how come we haven't done it? She talked about licensing through the state. We don't, a license is permission. We don't need permission to do jack crap. Our people bomb out here. Then they go to some European school and get a so-called beauty license. What do you mean? How do you give you permission to do hair which you already did? And a lot of our people already own businesses. They just need this mentality. You know what I'm saying? No black owned anything because you can't be black and own anything. Read the article, read the Christian Black Codes of 1724. Article 22, and it'll tell you you can't own crap, which is why they're taxing you like crazy and they're digging their hands in your honey jar. You need a permit for that. Oh, you need a license for that. Last time I checked, I'm a grown man and I don't need permission to do crap from no European. I might ask my mom.
Article 4, what's that I do? Article 4?
Christian Black Codes of 1724 or Article 4?
No, not that one. I'm talking about the other one. Article 4 you mentioned.
The Articles of Confederation.
Confederation.
Yes. Articles of Confederation. Which we're dealing with the first and second Continental Congress before they got the Republic.
Right. I heard.
You have a question?
Yeah, my brother's brother. what our sister was saying over there, it just like segued back into what you were saying, like when you abandon your property.
Yeah.
So, like, with respect to what she said, with everything that we know, and, you know, we're confronted, you know, with this de facto government, there's all these people surrounding on your land, and, you know, it got really intense, you know, I made them stand down, or got them, you know, to stand down, you know, but then the second time they came, you know, my husband felt that it was the way they did it, you know, of course, they're what they are, you know, de facto the rats, you know. And so he felt it best because there's a heart condition, like with me going back and forth in the hospital, he felt it best because they just like slapped him on the door the next time they came. And him and my daughter decided to have me leave because they knew exactly what you just said, that the prophet said, you know, like, die. Like what you said, like, die. Just like they knew I would absolutely not leave my estate. I would die. Like, that's the only way you're going to take me out of here. And they knew that, like, Mom is hardcore. She means this. Like, that, we got to really get her out of here. So, like, with all these threats, they actually, when they, you know, I left, and my husband and my daughter were there, came down with their ancestors, with canines. You know what I mean? They came with like all of this stuff. I know it's like.
So what you're talking about is an act of war.
And so I'm like really, really grateful. I did it since I was just like so grateful because it's just like there's so much going on since then. And I listened to like all your tapes. I had the ancestors clearly let me hear because I didn't even know that you were gonna be here. I mean, like, what's going on? Because I got out and my husband started Robin, you know, it's your boy's gonna be there. And I'm like, okay, because I heard from Taj, and then I'm like, Taj will be there. Jamal, I'm like, oh, you kidding me? Let's go. It just doesn't matter. We just have to go. And I'm just like so grateful because I've been trying to get in touch with you, and I got a little mad at you because you told me, oh, you said, when I put it up there, you said, no, you left. you left. But I'm like, you know, I'm trying to get back in, but you know, there's been a lot going on with my computer, them doing like, they really, you know, have been doing a job, you know, and they have over 400,000 reasons in Federal Reserve notes to do it because that's how much, you know, the property's been paid. Like, okay, I'm using that term, but I know that we shouldn't use term, but it's like, I was like, even in a mortgage, like it was paid off in 2006, and everything is sealed, stamped, and they see it. But I didn't know this level of knowledge to put my things in and trust. And so when I go to do all these things, like everybody was saying, they shut things down. They, you know, and I realized, you know, under Title 18, they violated my rights because they closed. They, you know, the courts are supposed to be open to me, and like they just like everything. I mean, like. Raj wrote this out with me. Everything they just 2015 is when I corrected my status and my properties. They didn't honor any of that. Like, and I don't care what I tried to give them or you know, regret. No, they just came in and just.
Can I talk about remedy for that? Yeah. Our remedy is our unity.
There you go.
We have all these so-called black people trying to be gangbangers and rappers and 14 Thursday people. Instead of focusing our energy on that, how about we come fortified and stand with the sister and defend her estate? That's what the appeal of come all the Asiatics of North America and know the truth about your nationality and birthright. That's what that is. Because in order to protect you, our people need to be there to protect you. Because it's beyond just the paperwork. It's beyond that. I probably sent thousands of papers that these people just ignore.
Right.
But I do it just to speak up. The remedy, just like I said earlier, is us coming together, period. Just like the prophet said, where there's unity, there is strength.
That's right.
I told you earlier what 5 Moors in a small room with a bunch of Europeans could do. We've said several times on camera what 30 of us in court can do. A Moor turns a page and the European magistrate is losing her mind. Our unity is I can't explain. It's something in ethers that happens when we're together. I can't explain it, I can't even pretend to explain it. Something happens. You don't have to believe me. And the other part, when we talked about them shutting things down, we need our own registry, our own, in each county, our own form of recording documents amongst ourselves. Which then now we're talking about providing jobs for each other. Okay, let's say this is, we all got a Morristown, Delaware, right? We're all over here rocking it. You got a orange man, you got a market, you got a farm, you got a trucking place, you got whatever name it, right? And she's the notary. So now whenever we want to go notarize something, we go to you, which is government. And now you got a solidified job because every time we record something, we're paying you. And you're good because you got the farm, and you're good because you got the market. That's what this is supposed to be. Yeah, but it ain't black. but the problem with Black Wall Street is every time more talk about this, that gets brought up. Then they talk about all they bonded. So now we're dealing with fear again.
Yeah.
And I'm not disregarding the fact that they do show up in numbers and they do bring dogs and whole SWAT team and everything. I'm not disregarding that. What I'm saying is in certain situations they can't do that. Like when we go to City Hall, they don't do that. Because we can get things done in City Hall. That's what these people work. And if you want to know more information, go to City Hall, get their names, go to the county record, put their names up, you know what it is. So if they don't answer at City Hall, oh hey, council, blah, blah. Oh, this is your nice house here. Oh, I see it on the record, you got this charge, what's up? Or you know, whatever the situation is. That we go there for, you know what I'm saying? Also, when we went to Chicago, when we asked for that document, they showed us where members of the Motorcycle Club of America don't have to pay for permits to build anything. That's an example of getting access to our state.
Any fees.
Yeah, any fees, nothing. Which that was City Hall. So we can go to City Hall and get things done like that. Resolutions, proclamations.
Just like the mayor here, right?
The mayor.
That was the one you said.
Oh, that was the governor of Rhode Island.
Oh,
Yeah, governor. Rhode Island. Discharging mortgages willy-nilly. Yeah, so exactly, something to pay. Any other questions? Thank you for sharing. I apologize that I made you mad at me, but that's just
No,
what it is.
with that, I know that you were answering so many people, and so, knowing your spirit, your heart, I knew that you meant it for good, like, sis, you know you ain't backside out.
Yeah.
You here, you know what you see me, like, you hear what I'm saying, so, like, you know, I'm just grateful that, like, really, like, Jamal popped up, it's like, okay, everybody knows that, you know, that, you know, Abdullah, and, Raz Mariah V and you know, Amir Todd, but then, I mean, like it was just the ancestors, Jamal, that like really had you show up, stand up, and I mean, like you said, break that thing down and make it plain, make it livable, so everybody that sees it really, you know what, the rise of the Moors. I mean, when
Yes.
I let my son hear your music, I was like, oh,
that was good,
that's
right?
how you know it.
You still remember?
That's that's hot.
Yeah.
That's hot. So it's like, thank you.
Thank you. It's about you. It's about people.
It's about, and that's what I said, like you said, when they keep coming with that fear factor, even now, today, it will be 6 months today that this has happened. And I was sharing with another brother and showing him what they had begun to do, you know, to this, you know, like literally tear what they considered bad windows out. I mean, like, knock the whole basement. It's been 6 months, and we talk about like it's just been crazy, But I'm telling you, you know, all it has done to me with all this fear factor. You know what? I realized that I was being processed and taken to a place where, you know, like I could no longer look at this as being done to me. Oh, me. No, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than me now. And so when they tried to shrink me, everything in me, and listening to all my brothers and sisters and all this timely information, you know what? No, I resolved in myself that, you know what? Now the fight that's in me now is for my offspring and for my people. This is for my people. This is just not for me. You know, and I stand up and declare that, so any of you can come. You know, I think the sister over here knows. Yeah, I like my doctorate in theology. And so like, that's something that I've learned to do, just be a woman of honor. I understand the purpose of, what the rise of uplifting, reforming humanity. I just really, I just know that this
Can
is
you give
bigger
a
than me.
round of applause for the women, please? Once the women get it, the children automatically. And when we read the chapter of the Quran where it talks about the first schoolroom being a womb, I asked my mother one time, what were you doing when you were pregnant with me? Like, what were you eating? You know, she's like, I lounged in the house. I used to drink a lot of Sprite. And she loved cookie dough. That's what I like to do. Lounge around. I used to drink Sprite. And I love cookie dough, big cookie dough. So the womb is the first schoolroom. Period. Ask her what she was doing. Chances are you like or have those qualities. Yes.
I just want to add that, and sometimes what we do even intensifies in our children.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful.
Oh my God.
Like my oldest son, 47, I ate pickles, potato chips, doused with hot sauce. He drinks bottles of the Pick Your A hot sauce. But I'm saying, what we're doing is so important, when you're nurturing that child, because it will intensify normally in that. Good, better, and different.
So I got here late and I'm just learning. So I'm trying to figure out. So have you been to out of the country and once you nationalized, do all this stuff? Is it hard? I'm checking because I like. I travel a lot. I'm just trying to figure out. Huh?
I haven't been out of the country once I nationalized. When I was in the military, I was in Asia, I was in Okinawa, Japan, Philippines, and Korea, and they love us. But once I got my once I was conscious of my nationality, I haven't traveled outside of this country.
I just recently had a conversation with Brother Sabir Day when he came back from being in Evangelist all that time. He let me know, he called me like the day ago, he said people have to know, he said we need passports when you travel. He said the nationality card in and of itself doesn't work. And apparently he has his passport, but he has it in his free national name. So sometimes we don't think we can do that. But if you're going to travel internationally, he said specifically, you need a passport.
Right.
So you're going to have both. You're going to be, have your stroll and your free national, or you're going to have it,
But that's exactly what you were saying with the Morris American Consulate. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
And some people, it's not for everybody, but Prince Uriel Bay traveled.
Somebody just asked about him.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing so many, because I've been sharing stuff. But Prince Uriel Bay, he traveled, without a United States passport. And if you don't have those instruments, I know I have to be loud, but if you're gonna have those instruments, do it as yourself. And make sure you read. That's what I was saying. Like for you, State of Delaware Code, just read it. Everything the brother says, it's in the code. It's only 400 pages. I know it sounds like a lot. It's only like 400 pages. But they won't even allow you to make your own tags and stuff like that. And another thing is just to add to what you were saying to answer that sister, if you're gonna go out of the country, most likely you're gonna travel Delta Airlines or United. Those are commercial venues. We need to be having our own private jets, but we don't have to use anybody's, passport and stuff like that. So that means you have to have your own thing. You have to have your own things.
Can I add on to that? There's a lot of Moors in my area that refer to themselves as Jamaicans. They know they're Maroons. They even talk about Maroon Town. And they talked about how do we go back, home? So, well, since you know the Maroons, we go with the consulate, so the consulate will contact the Maroons so we can get a port in Maroon Town, which avoids all of them. You get what I'm saying? That's how we should be thinking. Because that cuts the middleman out, which is the European who's robbing us. Any other questions? Any questions? Yeah, well, ask. I'd rather have people asking questions than me teach a class.
Yeah,
go ahead.
a question here.
One person, please.
There's a question online.
It say after nationalizing, should we create our own personal trust and then lien the corporate states and then claim parcel of the land for a Moorish community?
Definitely.
I think so.
It's online.
Yes, you should create a trust. The trust isn't the paper though.
Right.
The paper is expressed what's in here.
Right.
Who's gonna manage what, how it's gonna be managed, but it's not for you. It's so when your heirs become competent, they have something to guide themselves by. That's for. And it does not need to be filed on any so-called anything. Because when you're dealing with well, I can reference the UCCs. If you read that, it says a document merely existing is proof that it exists. So create a trust, put it on paper, print it out, and there you go. And it's 3 years, yes.
The Treaty of Peace and Friendship stipulates about your will. Bring your will forth and let your consulates review the will, and they will determine the heirship of your estate.
Yes, and if you're not competent, the councils will take charge until someone competent appears. And hold on, there was another part of that.
And then
Claim
parcel, and lien the corporate states, and then claim parcel of land for Moorish community.
Do you know what a lien is? I do this all the time.
It's a.
I'm gonna show you.
Don't do it.
It's a lien.
I'm not heard.
I'm serious.
Wait, go lean back.
This is a lien.
But you can't sell your house with a lien.
This is that lien. This wall has the obligation of holding me up. Obligation to debt.
That's a lien.
So now, because this is important, because people think a lien, you just do a lien and then the paper is going to do all the work. How many of us have got a water bill from these Europeans and we didn't pay it? No matter how many papers they sent you. Those papers saying you owe this, that's the lien you. We only pay when they show up physically and turn that water off. That's the ultimate lien. So you can send papers to these so-called corporate states all you want. Until you go to City Hall and talk to them, ultimately then, now you got a lie in my face. Are you going to do it with 100 words behind me? Get that concept. Not send a document and the document does all the work. You have to actually leave your house, leave your room, and then go speak to these people. And you'll find out that they're very incompetent.
Get on Facebook.
And then, as far as the parcel part, the property already said what part of myself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, that's why your feet don't touch the ground. When you jump, your husband hand back on it.
Yeah.
But I think that was my other question.
That's okay, I forgot more.
We still love you. Any other questions? We understand what a lien is, right?
I just wanted to add on to that, going down to the city hall. It's kind of like, in Santeria, Lukimi, Ifa, like there's an Eshu or a Shango pot or ancestor pot. Like, ancestors are not really, ancestors are right here.
Right.
But it's the fact that you took time and you meditated and you pulled that vibration and you magnetized that because you understand what you have in you. And I always tell this story, and I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of it all the way up to the trust. I'm proud of like the 20 different organizations that I have, including Drop Squad Kitchen, which is not on the record, but I know y'all know that that place exists for the record, and it's on premium real estate property, but there is no Drop Squad Kitchen that I pay anything for. So I'm just saying this stuff is real, but when they took my children, and they were there, so they were there. So this is not no fake story. But I went down there, and I was just like, standing on the tree. And they're just laughing, and like, what tree? I was like, it's like Article 4, you're not even talking, you shouldn't even be talking to me right now. But, and the stuff works, but I'm trying to tell you, how there's memes out there that says like, walk like you have 3,000 ancestors with you. You guys got to take that seriously because you do.
Like we really do. So it's very important for us to show up. Like Sister Naila, you were saying, get off Facebook actually and start showing up.
I was just gonna say there's a really good template for trust. That's what I was gonna say. Really good trust template at MoorishAmericanConsulate.org. You can they have a good trust document. It'll get you started. Like he said, it's got to be you, but at least you got something to get you started. And it's a nice book. It's got all the headings. I mean, all the flags and everything it needs on it. So go to MoorishAmericanConsulate.org and look at the trust and other documents that they have. They have what else do you have? Nationality papers, extractions, people that have been kidnapped and so forth, venues changing out of their jurisdiction into our own, all that's on there. And Moorish American Consulate, CONSULATE.org.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on 2 points of that. I also have trust law information on the website, RaM's.org. I have 2 lectures on it, a book on it, and both of the lectures come with additional information. Also, it's on my website, RaM's.org. If you click on products, go to lectures, and you'll see. Also, when you go to RaM's.org, public information, you'll see where Moore was facing driving without license, driving without insurance, all this crap. And I sent a prohibitio to the Ali something county in Philadelphia, and they dismissed all the charges. So a prohibitio means you're prohibited. So you're prohibited from speaking to this Moor, because this Moor does not agree to be surety for that strong man. And you'll see that on the website, which was issued from my hand. You'll see that it was dismissed. The case number that I typed, signed, is dismissed on the website. Yes.
So you were traveling and...
No, it was another Moor. Right. Another Moor was traveling without no license, none of that stuff. You see him on the website, you see the so-called charges. He contacted me for assistance, so I sent him a writ of prohibitio to be mailed to them. And I also CC'd another council member.
You said that you gave him a certain amount of time to respond.
No.
Just sit there next to him.
Yeah, stop talking to him. What are you talking to him for?
He's saying he's not agreeing to contract with you.
Yeah. So what else is there to discuss? You can't prove anything.
They'll send it to every last bill.
Exactly.
Yeah, but every situation is different. Because we're also dealing with human beings. They're not just a beast and what the devil is. We're dealing with humans. You know what I'm saying? And some of these humans might read this document like, oh crap, this person's fake. I probably shouldn't proceed with this. You know what I'm saying? We're dealing with human beings. Yes.
So when you said you sent that document, that dismissed everything.
But
because
the
they're not contacting you.
The Moor also stood on his square and didn't agree to anything that they offered him. So that's also very important. His own mental competence. He might not have known everything I knew, but he knew what I was saying was right, and he knew something, so he's able to stand on both. So that was me kind of assisting him thoroughly. If you kind of get it.
So once you sent the document, told him don't contact me anymore. How do you know it was discharged? They can't talk to him.
Because it says dismissed. Because you can look, because remember, it's in the strong name.
Yeah.
Each so-called court has a website. You can search the case number, name, and it says it.
Okay.
And then you just go down to the courthouse and get the records from the clerk. It's on RaM's.org. On the public information. Any other questions? Yes.
How can I get nationalized?
Yeah.
How can I do mine? Is it to change? Do I need to change the status, or do it what's the benefit of changing status, and how?
What's the benefit of mental competence? That's what you're asking. Because so before I was just going through tolls and paying them. Once I corrected my status and I found out Article 6 of the Constitution states that the Articles of Confederation apply. Then I read Article 4, I found out I don't need to pay taxes. My status was corrected. That's the benefit. Now I don't pay toll tax. That's the benefit. You know what I'm saying?
Is it just toll tax?
But it could be, it's taxes period. Excise car tax, on your so-called motor vehicle. Like, I put an affidavit on the website where the city of Providence tried to tax me, even though they addressed a straw name, I know what they were trying to do. But then when you read Article 13, Section 5 of the Constitution for the State of Rhode Island, it states that no city or town may levy or collect taxes except authorized by the General Assembly. So I said, okay, John A. Murphy, who's the city tax collector of Providence, show me where the General Assembly said you could do this. He did not, therefore I did not pay him anything. Because the accuser bears the burden of proof. He accused that I owed him taxes, so therefore I said, prove that he did not, I won. Yes.
Okay, so say you work for a big corporation.
Yep.
And it's considered to be like a multi-billion company. And your employees, so you're agreeing to work with this company. So you're contracting with this company. So are you agreeing to pay taxes?
Yes, that's why you signed the W-4.
That's why you signed the W-4.
But this is what knowing the distinction between an employee and an independent contractor. Which when you go to Black's Law Dictionary, fourth edition, you see employee means servant. And you're at the will of the employer because employer means master. If you're an independent contractor, you're just offering a service, which they can't put any obligations on contracts per Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, and per Article 17 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and per Article 20 of the Declaration of Rights, Declaration of Human Rights, which says no one may be compelled to belong to an association. Just like Article 1, Section 10 says no obligation shall be put on contracts. Article 17, which says purchase and buy and sell at free will, which is the right to contract again. That's why they keep teaching us being employee. Get it in, all this kind of stuff to keep us in that subservient position.
So a job is a master servant contract.
Yes.
So even if, okay,
Which is why they have the right to fire you at will. And if you try to do the name correction with some so-called employers, they can fire you because now you're not a slave. Okay, so get off my plantation.
So just like the employees hire contractors to come in to do certain kind of contracts.
Exactly.
So like, say for instance, they get temp agencies because they don't have.
That's still subservient. Because they give our people temp agency jobs, fire them. Give them another one, fire them. Give them another one, fire them. Give them another one, fire them. So if you're an independent contractor, you're a secure party, you're offering your own services, no one can fire you.
Okay.
So
if you're a contractor, you're doing lighting, and they hire you to do some reset lighting, and at the end of the year, the government goes, hey, you owe us taxes for.
That's if you're doing business in their name.
But you're doing business in your own.
If you're national name, then they can't track what you're making.
Okay.
Unless you attach a social to whatever you're doing, EIN, whatever you're doing, because if you get EIN, you have to submit social to get that.
But do you deal with all cash, or how would it work?
Sometimes you gotta work the system. If they're asking you for something that's hindering your business, then you have to do that. Just recognize that you're forced to do it. So that when they do try to come for the taxes, you can hit them with the, what are you talking about?
That's exactly.
Hit them with the You get what I'm saying? So you have to recognize that when we're talking about all these rights and privileges that we have, some of them can't be executed to the full capacity yet because we're still under occupation.
Right.
You always have to remember that.
Thank you for saying
Well,
that. Man, people be getting hurt.
Because this is what it is. People keep getting stuck in the higher self. They keep getting stuck with the mystic and the we can do this. Forgetting that this exists. You have to feed this. This has to survive.
Yeah.
So you can't dismiss reality. If you do, then I don't know.
You emphasize the fact that when you do stick to the fact that you're independent contractor, then now you also become your own accountant. So that way you don't have to pay taxes. You're not obligated to pay taxes, period.
So now it's in your own trust. Because you're taking care of it. You're the trustee. It's in your trust. Remember, trust is people. A piece of paper is not a trust, it's a piece of paper. A trust is an agreement. Like, can you wash my drink for me? That's a trust. You know what I'm saying? Where you're the trustee. I'm the grantor, you're the trustee. I'm the grantor and beneficiary in that situation, you're the trustee. Because you're obligated to make sure no one does my drink. And I benefit from that. And I ask you to do that, so I'm granting you the power over my drink. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I'm trying to make it so that it's basic, so anyone can get it, because it's simple, yes.
So if you're not working, but say you're retired, so you're getting pension, and you may be getting your social security. Could be somebody like me, but it could be not. And you're getting those things, and then you nationalize, those things are coming in your straw. How do you protect yourself from having to pay anything?
Leave all old business as it is, become all new business in your free national name. The prophet was a genius.
Right.
So you leave all that old crap the way it is. Then when they say, oh, you own it, oh no, you're talking to free nationals long now, not what you thought. That's leave all old business as it is and become all new business in your free national name. That's the remedy. Because they control all of that. Great question.
So basically you're saying
I understand, but would they come against, I'm sorry.
I knew it, that's why I was like,
we both have the same born day.
I'm not saying.
Well, our question is.
Our question is, so you leave that there, but if they can't find her to try to tax her, because she stopped having them take taxes out of that, or him, could be. And you leave it like it is, can they do something with it? Because even though you still are a trust, you're the one you're handling that old person's, yeah.
It's not a person. Right.
So innately, hold on. I know what you're saying. Innately, they can do whatever they want because it's theirs. But you can step in as ex-rel. I have information pertaining to this matter.
But I think,
which can stop them.
Yeah,
but does it connect you?
No, it doesn't.
No. But I think I got the answer.
It connects you to the amount that you take fiat from it. That's the only connection. Because
that's that marketing ploy. That's the marketing
Yeah,
ploy.
but I think it was right, Jamal. See, what happened was, I still born a slave name, but when they sent me my check, they cut the check for like 18 grand. But they had my star name, but the nationality card trumped it. So, just like you said, old business. So that's the way they took it. And this is a military country. So they still took it like that, like you said.
Didn't you change the name on the social security card?
Yeah, but I changed it to
that's why. So that's why.
Huh?
Yeah, that's why. Because you.
That was 5 years ago.
Yeah, but I'm still trying to show you how you linked it, so you made them able to put the free national because you put it on their social.
So they cut a new check.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying. But listen, how you made join you connected to which aren't supposed to be.
Right, you made your free national name a straw.
Yeah.
You know, so like if you had.
Oh no, they fixed it. They recut the check to my free national name. They had a star name.
Okay,
they had Jenkins, the military.
Right,
and I said, hey, I can't because I still can't. But with my free education,
I know what you're saying.
He held so long.
Yeah.
Right.
So well, my children no longer the star name. They came into the world as free. Yeah. See?
But that's what I was saying is the market employees. So they come into the world as now, like she had the choice. She went and used that social. She went again. She got it. If she became an employee. Drop Squad Kitchen, like we gave her a choice. We were like, you can be an employee because as an employee, we can guarantee like $400. No, $400 a week. She's like, I'll take that. Like, right, but she's smart because she still ain't did the driver's license and stuff like that. But I was just saying that I was like, have you ever seen me file any taxes? And we just have this little sidebar thing. So that is the marketing scheme. The marketing ploy is Social Security benefits. Honey, I know you feel like you earned it. It was your flesh and blood that went into working for the city. You want that. You know what I mean? But the thing is that that's why I was saying we have to actually make choices. Like you have to have that balance between heaven and earth. And there's nothing that we do on earth that can go against our heavenly state, what that mind. And when you do, that's when doors get blocked. And as soon as we melanin people, we more start realizing we're more to start actually taking action as more, then our collective worry, our collective state will change. The temperature will change. And these people will go back from where they came from because they won't be able to deal with our numbers. So go and change it. Yeah, and right. Yeah, because probably what you all said. When they leave, like the atmosphere. I mean, I'm not saying the exact words, but you said the temperature will change and go back to the way that it was. But I'm saying I look at stuff esoterically. That's a rebirth when you change your name and then don't link it to the social, and then figure out how to get a bank account. Like you just gotta be born to.
They make that difficult. So they make all of that difficult.
Not really though.
Well,
nowadays it's so much easier. Like there wasn't no you around, like years ago. I was the you. There was no you around. Like so, I literally had to go to Bank of America and pull out every single document. At that time, it was very important for me to go get everything on paper and have it on the record and get every single oath and bond that I pulled and put it on the record and get it certified. So I had certification documents of my documents from my own entity, from my own temple. And so when they took my children, I was like, look here, I'm not only the grand sheikess, I'm the birth mother, I didn't have them. So all of that was important because there wasn't any brother Jamal, at the time. There just wasn't. I couldn't go to the Rising and the Moors websites and the Moors constantly stuff. What? No, like we were out there just throwing ourselves underneath the bus trying to do this. So I'm just saying it's necessary and it's worth it. And when you were saying all of this stuff earlier, I was just feeling really good. Like I'm really, really blessed that that's it. This is the last cycle of being in bonds with the United States Corporation for my family. Done.
Right.
I want to take her home.
That was beautiful. But I want to share again what happened when we went to the bank and we tried to ask them to open up these foreign bank accounts. They were like, yeah, we would never violate federal law, even though they were violating it.
Yeah.
Wait, which bank?
Bank of we went to Bank of America.
Imagine that.
Somebody told me Bank of America needs to be the international branch for that to work. So yeah, we sat down with who we saw. Bank. It was a clerk and she also does mortgages to see if we could get a bank account, and she gave us the runaround. And Jamal's showing her how she's breaking U.S. code, and she's swearing, no, we would never do that. And you want to talk about
the specifics?
Foreigner.
Yeah. Let me see. So the way their system is set up is that we can't. Let me get the camera so I don't get The way the system is set up is their programs don't allow us to be free nationals in their system. So we try to open up a foreign account with Citizens Bank, at least Citizens Bank. I haven't tried to make America, so
they tried to do.
So far. No. So Citizens Bank, she literally showed us a screen. It said you can click Moroccan, but when it says form of ID, it only says U.S. passport, citizenship number, or some other BS, or green card. It doesn't have a slot for a nationality card. So those are problems that we face.
And how many years have you lived in?
They asked how many years have we lived within the United States and were we on a visa and stuff like that. And the way you answer those alters your options. And she showed us. You know what I'm saying? So it's more than just a state of mind of the people we're dealing with. We're dealing with actual computer programs that don't allow us to be free nationals within their system.
Right.
Which again is more of a reason why the prophet said, until you maintain a national treasury, you're nothing. Because when I keep going to them, and them in their banking system for an account. He didn't say a credit union. He didn't say a trust. He said a national treasury. And then look up the importance of a national treasury. Any questions?
Well, we have a, lovely Miss Stafford stated to go to Bank of America, they will honor your nationality card. No social at all. I advise them that we are nationals and we do not use that. I also help others get their accounts.
That sounds great.
Well, Bank of
Bank of America.
What city and state are they in? What city and state are they in, and can they help us?
And that's a great question, because some more you charge packages for more to get their free national name on the card. It's BS.
Could you, Lovely, could you state what state you domicile?
Any other questions? Yes.
I opened up a Bank of America account in Philadelphia. I just used a world passport and my Morse ID.
Right.
Oh
God, World Service Authority.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What about them?
I mean, I have one too. Delaware confiscated mine. But World Service Authority, because I'm not going against these cops no more. Like, once somebody takes your children, like, you just recognize and you just let the spirit handle that. But World Service Authority actually has a body built in. So if something like that happens, you can contact them for their legal team. But I didn't have time for all that. I just went and got another one. So World Service Authority says like you're basically like a world citizen, and you can all you have to do is go down there with real credentials. And real credentials would be like your Morris Science Temple of America card. Your real credentials could be the ID that you got from the brother in Philly on 23rd and Spring Garden. Your real credentials, you know what I'm saying, could be the ones that I created on my own, laptop that says, such and such. And that's what I was telling my sister over there. Like, I have done on my own paperwork, period. Like, I don't even not relying on anybody else. And so you take that and they will actually give you a real passport. Now, that passport actually works, but sometimes it doesn't because you're dealing with commercial venues. So, like I said, if you want to fly Delta and stuff like that, recognize that, what are they called, TSA? They might not. It's up to the discretion of whoever's working at the time because they're human. So that's what World Service Authority is, and you're absolutely right. Bank of America does that, and TD Bank, and you just have to really, really understand. Like when they ask for identification, like I was telling the sister, identification could be, and this is where I kind of feel like put your stuff on the record, because if you're dealing with humans and they get scared if they see a state of Delaware seal and a Newcastle County seal and the United States seal in the state, like what? They're like, okay, man, we got you. And if that paperwork has my physical picture, and then it has everything like brown eyes, brown hair, tawny, copper colored, and all this extra, like, okay, we got you. Some people, just that spirit of that spelling that's on that paper is going to win. And also because you're present and because we actually do have that DNA, which means we have our ancestors with us, you're showing up and 3,000 of you are showing up. They don't know that. You know that. They just feel it. And they're just like, okay, whatever, okay, here's your temporary card. That's really what happens. And so identification is just like a picture of you on a piece of paper. All these IDs are, as I was telling the sister, is actually a certification of that document on plastic. The actual identification is my paperwork that has all those seals on it. The first seal coming from my own flesh and blood, my own entity, and then everybody else's.
What she just said was embodied in that Title 18, subsection 1028, D3. And remember, it is.
Just drop it.
It is.
Right.
And remember, the highest seal is your thumbprint.
Right.
It's your divine being.
I went to the World Service Authority in Washington, D.C. I showed my more shot did. He said, if you don't have ID, thumbprint will work.
Yep.
Yeah. They also have ink pads at banks. And then, as far as the royal passport, y'all see Dave, which some of you may know is most deaf. He had one and he used it.
Yep. That's what I'm trying to say, y'all.
That's that facts. Any other questions? Yes.
When dealing with, as far as property is concerned, we're dealing with like property, obtaining property, you say, like, you said you use your card at, you said Bank of America? So, when you talk about like, I see like, getting our own national treasure, you know, our bank system, in the meantime, how do you go about, when you have, once you convert over, how do you go about obtaining land and property?
So now here's a basic example. Google, you don't have to do it right now. Google Aboriginal title. Then scroll down, it's gonna say allodial title. Click on allodial, don't even click on it, just hover your mouse over it. It'll say basically claiming land with the ability to defend that land. So again, the solution is having our people there, having people standing by you willing to say, this is ours. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? We can do this individuals, but I shared what happened to me earlier. I don't know if you're here. What happened when I did it individually? And the solution is, I'm telling you from experience, you go on my YouTube, I don't hide anything. The solution is us doing things together.
So what if you had family members who had land in the South?
Yeah.
And, where the government has come in and said, hey, we're taking eminent domain.
Yes, first of all, not the government. Second, all of you need to do an adverse possession. An adverse possession is letting the feudal lords know, not the government. The feudal lords know, because we're the government. Let the feudal lords know we're going back on our estate. That's adverse possession. And be clear that you know that that is not squatting, because squatting is unlawful. That's adverse possession. You're putting the feudal lords on notice. Then you're going. That's adverse possession. Put on a county record, all that. But remember, we're under occupation. That's why the prophet said, caveat emptor.
What if you have like no access to the property?
What do you mean?
Like, I have one family member where they basically did like an eminent domain of their property, and they started building things up on the property, and like it's like this is a private property.
Yes. So now what you're talking about is reversion, but again, our claim is only as strong as the people that we have around us. So 100 people claiming one estate, that's more powerful than one person doing. So what I'm trying to say is recognize that it is what it is.
And so it basically just rallying your community around.
Yeah, because it's about our people and our family, yes.
You said adverse conveyance.
Adverse possession.
Oh.
He's like us for this stuff.
No, because I'm very keen on the words and on the fact that to identify, because the fact that he said adverse conveyance, adverse possession, we were victims of an adverse conveyance.
Oh, wow.
You follow me? Yeah. So being a victim of adverse conveyance, someone who fraudulently put on record that they were orders to the parents for $1 and on official record.
So did you put in your adverse claim? Because that's their claim. So did you put in an adverse claim to challenge their claim?
Well, this was what it was. We didn't know about it until
it was abandoned.
No. We didn't know. It was done without authority, and authority and or consent.
Yep.
So now the offset is the coming claim. Yeah. Adverse claim.
Yes. If they put something on the public record and it doesn't go challenge, then an affidavit uncontested stands as law. But if you don't,
Okay.
So if I start saying, if I start calling you a punk out on the street,
right?
If you don't ever rebut that, then that's what the people are going to agree to. Right. That's basically what the adverse claim is. You coming out and saying, well, no, I'm not a punk. You understand? So think of it like that, because it's that simple.
Yeah,
but wait a minute. So. All right, and they put that on official record. So now we put on official record adverse.
Yeah.
We put the adverse, then I ain't going to consistent to that.
Yes.
It's dead.
But sure, yeah. All you're saying, like, definitely uniting is that simple. Man, I don't even read the paper, but I just so happened to grab one today, all days. I seen the story they had on the cover about the Italian community in New York refused to let the city municipal corporation take down a statue of Christopher Columbus because they said it was that important as a symbol to their Italian heritage that they would be infuriated by them taking it down. So the city did not. And the city had agreed priorly years ago that they would add next to the plaque the history that of the annexation and genocide that Christopher Columbus did. But never could have certified time when they would put it up. But they said that they would eventually next to it describing the history of what actually happened. So that it's saying that they attest to the fact that he did do these things, and the statue was here, and they have really only even touched on talking about maybe taking it down because of the removal of things down south. But just the community of people that claim a nation, the Italian Americans, saying together in unity, we don't want this to happen, it didn't happen. With all of the known facts being there, and so acknowledging this man committed genocide, they're like, well, these guys don't want it done, so it's not gonna happen. And they're Italian Americans, naturalized people on this land. So just imagine what the heirs could do unified.
So now you're talking about the will of the people, which is the will. That's why the prophet said the will of Allah, or Allah is the one that guides the destiny of the Morris Temple of America, or the Morris National Movement. Because it is our will that gets things done. Don't think that just because these people are de facto that they don't know about divine law. It's all predicated on the people and their agreement. We have to realize how much power we have. Just like those Italians, that was an exercise of strength. We have the same ability or the same capacity to do the same thing. That's the will of Allah, the will of God, whatever you want to call her, or it, whatever. That's that entity's will manifest through us. That was great addition. Any other questions? We gotta wrap it up soon. Yes.
All right. I drove here from DC. I just want to know if it's possible tonight. I brought my nationality document with me. I want to possible I can take it at
Yes.
tonight.
Yep.
Welcome home, brother. Welcome home.
Thank you.
Just so you know, that if you come on camera and say, "I'm more," that's what you're claiming nationality. Just so you know. I'm being serious, because some people think I gotta do this extra comedic process so that the ancestors know. How do you say?
Y'all gotta buy a package?
Just so you know, I love y'all.
Y'all gotta come here.
Oh, yeah,
I want to ask everybody, basically, for my position, I'm like your only active Moor that I know in New Jersey, and being just the energy that we got here tonight, and it seems like a lot of people are knowledgeable active Moors here. I have some documents that I would like witnesses for. You know, I don't know if you'd be willing to do this tomorrow, but I know you said you would want to read it, so that you know what you signed. I respect that in the same way. I'm not trying to make tonight all about me, but just so that we all understand what
this is what the Morris Temple of America is supposed to be doing. So don't apologize for that, because that's what we're supposed to be doing.
So yeah, whenever you're ready.
All right, well, those of you who showed up late bloomers, I know how you went to high school, right? My books over there for sale, my first book and second book. Also, we have RishonRisingWars.org for information, additional information. Also, we can get another round of applause for the House of Reawakening Minds. It's been open to service all boards, because just like the brother in New Jersey, I felt like I was the only one in my area who knew this stuff. My mom said to tell you I was locked in my own basement, spent most of my money on books, and just kept watching videos after video. My mom said one day, "You want me to stop watching videos?" because of what it was doing to my mind. Because remember, just as the light can heal you, it can also blind you. You know what I'm saying? So don't ever think that Jamal never felt like he was the only one doing it. Because I get a lot of emails from the people saying, "I'm the only one." We ain't the only one, because I'm right here. You know what I'm saying? So I love the House of R.A.M. If it wasn't for the information provided by the House of R.A.M. and the more is dedicated to this, no matter how many people are in the seats. I've seen videos with Taj and 200 people in the room. Didn't matter. I love you for it. I commend you for it. And with that, I say peace.